Just have to remember it's there.
Good evening and welcome to the board meeting. If we could please all rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the people that were able to make it tonight to the meeting and those that are watching online. We'll move right into the superintendent's report. Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Again, thank you also for being online watching tonight's presentation. I do have an update tonight regarding our return to learn status. I'll get into that in just a few moments. A couple of other announcements. The Board of Education did receive a correspondence from an employee regarding an employment accommodation request. I just want to publicly acknowledge that that request was given to the Board of Education. Again, tonight I will be speaking to the public, those present, our Board of Education, and asking for some future direction, some direction for our Return to Learn program. And I'm pretty excited about where we are tonight, and I'll get to that in just a few moments. A quick Vision 2020 update. Things are moving along nicely. You can certainly see the work progressing at the middle school on the exterior, but this Board of Education also has awarded the bids for the interior work of the 3 schools and the exterior work that's going to be happening here at the high school. Most notably, the exterior work here at the high school at the track and athletic fields will begin in earnest tomorrow. So today, the company that's going to be doing the work started staging some of their equipment, and tomorrow they are going to start the work of track and field replacements and underground work and striping and things like that. So that's very exciting. That's happening, getting going tomorrow. In addition, today there was a kickoff meeting with the interior contractor, and that progress we'll begin to see that progress very, very soon. So today really was the official kickoff for the project, but hopefully within the next week or two we'll start to see a mobilization of the effort for doing interior work in the 3 schools for our improvement on the Vision 2020 project. Now, I do want to note the exterior work that's going to be happening out at the track and field is going to be disruptive for those that like to use that area for exercise. We will do our best to work with construction management and the contractor to try to wall or cordon that area off so that it still remains a safe space while construction's happening, but also as accessible as possible. So certainly the track and field itself will not be accessible during the construction phase, but maybe we can work on ways to fence things off with temporary fencing with the contractor so that there can still be some walking routes around it. And Ms. Mealy will follow up with construction management and Mr. Cavazza on that in the next couple of days. The last piece I really want to address is a very disturbing piece that's occurring in New York State and at the federal level. And quite honestly, I feel that school districts in the state are being used as pawns in a political game of funding. And it's not fair, and it's not right, it's not appropriate. So the governor had announced previously that school districts will have 20% of their aid on hold and will receive 80% of their aid. We did receive 80% of our aid payment for some of the categories for September, and there was a portion, the 20%, was on hold for some of the aid categories. It's gamesmanship between the state and the federal government because it's not cut, it's on hold. And what happened yesterday is evidence of the gamesmanship. And using our district and every district across the state, and quite honestly then our taxpayers and our children as pawns in this game, is unacceptable. Yesterday, a state organization sued the governor for the 20% hold, filed in state Supreme Court. Immediately, the governor's director of budget released the 20%, effectively canceling or reneging the need for the lawsuit. If it's that simple, let's file a lawsuit every time then, because holding school districts hostage with 20% of aid, now for us, the September payment was a $280,000 plus or minus hold, but that's real money. That's money we need in these buildings, in these districts, in these schools to pay for programs we're running right now. I will be speaking with Senator Skoufis next week, and I will be speaking with Assemblyman I was going to say Scartatos,
Wow.
Jacobson next week regarding this, and it's just an unacceptable approach to how we politic in today's day. Using schools and our children as pawns in this game is just unacceptable. So if you have it within you, please contact Senator Skoufis and please contact Assemblyman Jacobson. Both of them are friends to education and have the same perspective that I do, and I would hope that they would be more than willing to listen to your same complaints. So thank you. Last piece, open houses are going to be coming up, and since everything is different, our open houses are also going to be different. So principals are working with our teachers to record open house interviews, really, open house orientations that families will be able to go on our website at the end of this month and view a full video orientation to their children's grades or courses. And I'm actually looking forward to the creativity that we're going to see in that process. So thank you very much to the teachers for doing that. And with that, I'd like to begin my presentation on the return to learn.
Just before you move in that, just one clarification, Mike. So while the work's going on, how long do we anticipate, the time change happens after October 31st? Do we think that they should be done by then, for the most part, with that outside work? Just because once it gets really dark, it's going to be...
Right.
I don't know if we have a schedule yet.
We do. I don't have the schedule at the top of my head, but I believe that they're expecting to begin laying the track and field sometime around mid-October, and I think they're anticipating to complete by mid-November.
Okay.
So it probably is going to be a good chunk of time.
Yeah, we'll just have, maybe Larry can work on making sure that unless we can't, making sure we got enough light on.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to put a few more lights on during those few weeks.
Okay.
So that people that do want to walk, once that time change happens, it's difficult, and it's, a little more light would help.
Okay.
If they've got to be in the outside areas.
Sure.
May I ask a question about open house?
Absolutely.
I noticed I was going through the calendar. I believe it's on September 29th, and all three are going to be on that same night. And I also noticed that there was overlapping. I was just concerned for some of the parents that might have kids in 3 schools or 2 schools. Is that the way it's going to happen, where it's all 3 the same night?
Fantastic question. That's the day and we'll clarify that, Karen, but that's the day that the videos have to be available by.
Okay.
And they'll be on the website in perpetuity, I guess.
So there'll be no interaction, and it'll be something they watch?
Correct. It'll be an asynchronous, let's use that word, right? It'll be an asynchronous experience. It'll be a recorded video.
Okay.
But you don't have to watch it that day.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's
okay,
when
I was
it'll be
afraid
available.
That if it was synchronous, that they would miss out
Yeah.
on some of the other. So that's great. Thank you.
And honestly, that's the reason why we needed to do recorded videos, because typically an open house, for example, at the secondary level, would be 9 10-minute periods. So scheduling 9 10-minute periods on a Google Meet for families that don't have the links was a logistical impossibility.
Okay.
So that's why the recorded videos are going to be the way.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Joanne?
Yeah, when you were talking about the track, because I know they do leave the track lights on now until about 9 o'clock at night. So what would be the difference?
Well, the difference will be if we're not actually being able to use the track, you may need more lights to light the area around the track, because people are going to be walking around the outer, not the inside. We just may need a few more lights.
We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. So moving to the return to learn update. So we have all through this process had 3 central foci for our ambitious work towards getting our children back into our schools. Number 1, we wanted to maximize the amount of time students and teachers are with each other, primary goal right there. We need to establish and follow necessary safety measures. Once we get our children into our schools, we want to keep our children in our schools, so we need to have the proper safety measures in place so that we can keep the COVID virus outside of our facility. And highlighted because this is hard on everyone. This is hard on children. This is hard on families. This is hard on staff members. Recognizing that this is a deep challenge for everyone, and everybody's challenge is a little bit different. And having that patience level from all perspectives is something I appreciate. I've had wonderful conversations with families. I've had some fantastic communications with some of our children, and I'm really impressed, teachers. I see what you're doing. I see the toiling that you're going through, and I see the hard work that you're putting into this, and I am truly in awe and appreciative of it. I know it's hard, but I want to make sure I publicly acknowledge you're all doing wonderful work. Our children are doing great things. Our families are bending over backwards to help their kids, and our staff members are going the miles that they have to go. So thank you very much. So let me get on to our status. I've moved since the last meeting into our a color-coded approach, and for a number of categories. So almost all categories have moved into a range where I'm very comfortable making a recommendation to this Board of Education for us to open up our schools for our in-person hybrid learning very soon. So let me go through some of the elements here. On this page, the piece that changed the most would be the third box down, student schedules for a blended and online, a blended hybrid and online program. So I believe at this point we are ready, or will be ready, by the first week of October for a blended model beginning on October 6th. That will be a Tuesday through Friday program. We'll have live and hybrid learning going on in every of the 9 periods at the middle school and high school every day, Tuesday through Friday. And we'll have a split hybrid online model based on the content blocks at the elementary school. And I'll get into a little more detail about that in just a little bit. So that was one that was in the yellow zone last meeting, and I've now moved it into blue. The reason it's not at green yet is because the principals and teachers are still working feverishly, as is our food service department now and our transportation department, to make sure we're ready for October 6th if the Board of Education agrees with me tonight and approves that acknowledgement. One of the changes here, all of you experienced as you walked in. So one element of making sure that we keep coronavirus out of our facilities as much as possible is temperature checking. So one approach to temperature checking is with a forehead temperature check. The regulation actually allows you also to have parents acknowledge whether their children have a temperature or not in the morning, and certify that they do not. Adults and children that don't have fevers or other signs of illness can come to work and come to school. We have put in temperature scanners at all 3 schools so that we can use that as an additional check, so that if someone does have a fever and tries to come to school, we can catch that at the door and help get that child or that adult to a physician so they can get assessed whether it's a COVID illness or some other illness. Certainly, temperature is not indicative of only COVID, but it is one of the major indicators. So that last time when we were here, we had to use the handheld scanner for people that came. Now we have the units that are available at all 3 schools ready to go. We're working on the final protocols, getting them final tested, and those are going to be ready to go. We also have a mobile app that will be used by staff because we have to screen our staff every day with the temperature scanning, but also a questionnaire that comes from the Department of Health regarding their own health status. And that will be up and running by the early part of next week. So I believe that that's a significant move for us as far as ensuring health and safety. Another change on this particular page is athletics. Since our last meeting, the Athletic Association from the state and also the section has approved athletics to begin in a 3-season approach beginning November 30th. I will get into some detail in just a few minutes on that. That's a significant piece for getting our children to return to competition. The rest of the pieces on this page have not changed from last time, but they are in a zone that I believe is that we're comfortable with moving forward. The last page, there's a couple of boxes here that I kept the same colors and actually added colors together because it's kind of a fluctuating and growing back and forth experience. So devices for 6 through 12, we are in a good place there. Our children have their devices 6 through 12. We have 500 additional Chromebooks on order. Those 500 Chromebooks are actually going to be going to some of the high school grades and replacing some of the machines that are currently in high school hands. And those high school machines will then be repurposed down to first, second, and third grade once those arrive. So the newest technology, touchscreen technology, will be going into our high school grades. So for our K-12 one-to-one initiative, we're getting there. We do have a supply chain issue with Chromebooks. I will speak to it in just a little bit, but I will also put a call out there right now. If there are any contacts in the supply chain for Chromebooks, we need 500 of them. We have a ship date later on in the fall for 500 Chromebooks that have been on order for about a month and a half right now. If anyone has any contact in the supply chain sales world for Chromebooks, I want to put you in touch with our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and for Technology, and let's see if we can get some help on getting those Chromebooks to us sooner. The one that I did keep red, I really just addressed in my preamble in speaking about state funding, and the 20% aid cut that's, I should say 20% on hold from the governor, at this point is going to remain in red because it's an area of unknown reality. And I'll leave it at that. So let me get into what our model is going to be and the model that I'm recommending that this board consider and ultimately adopt. We're really essentially going to be moving into a what I'm calling it a blended in-person and online learning model. And that would begin for all students K through 12 on October 6th. What does this look like? So in-person and online students will be, quote, in the same class at the same time, Tuesday through Friday. In the middle school and in the high school, that's for all 9 periods, period 1 through 9, for all of your scheduled classes. So if you're an A group student and you're in our school on Tuesday, you'll be physically in, thank you, you'll physically be in your classroom. The other group, the B group, and the online cohort will also be in the classroom, but watching and participating from a live computer feed. So we'll be broadcasting out from our classrooms out into homes where online learning is occurring. And that will be every class, every day, and the expectation is every class, every day, every class, live. Tuesday through Friday. Now, the caveat to that is the amount of live time is going to vary by subject, it is going to vary by grade, and it will vary by topic and subject. Some topics lend themselves to full periods worth of live direct instruction. Some topics do not, and they need to have short periods of live time followed by on your own work that doesn't have to have a live camera feed for it. And our teachers are working on those different variances as we speak. So what I did on the chart below is I circled in red how this would work. So we have 3 different groups attending, let's say, 7th period science in the middle school. There's a group of children that are in person. There's a group of children that will be in person the next day. That's student group B online. And then there's the online academy, and those children are always online. All 3 of those groups of children will be watching and participating in the same lesson at the same time in the room. Some physically present, some remotely present by watching and participating through a Google Meet. Does anybody on the board have a question about that before I go on to the next slide? Because I get into a lot of other depth in other areas, so I threw a lot at you there. So.
James?
Yeah.
K through 8, is there still going to be designated online academy only teachers?
Yes. So let me I can get into that detail in a minute, but the K through 5 world is going to be, to the extent that we can, there's going to be a bifurcated approach. So we have 6 sections in a grade level, K through 5. The way the numbers break as far as how many families have selected the online academy, for grades 1 through 5, 2 of the 6 will most likely be fully online sections, and the other 4 will be the A-B hybrid group. The caveat to that is there are some integrated co-teach sections that may have some trouble being able to duplicate the services in both, so we'll have to do some creative work for those. But our principals, Robin Hecht at the lead, and our director of special ed are working on those details. But to the extent that we can, it will be 2 different program splits there for K-5.
Okay. Joanne?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused. So if you're coming to school Monday and Wednesday,
It would be Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is the
right,
CNC prep.
right.
Yeah.
So, so Tuesday and Thursday, you're in school. The kids that are home, will they be online with that class?
Right. So
This way
actually,
they're still learning the
let me-
full week.
let me explain
I'm
it-
getting confused
let me
here.
explain it a simpler way, because it is confusing. You're right. So right now, all of our children are 100% remote.
Correct.
Beginning October 6th, that remote experience will still be happening. So the children that are 100% remote will still have that experience. Beginning October 6th, half of the live kids will be in the room, like an audience, to the remote experience. The next day, those kids are now online, and the other remote group is in the room, like an audience. So all the students, and let me use numbers. So let's say in the group that I've circled here, it's 25 kids. 5 of them are in the online academy. 10 of them are in Group A, and 10 of them are in Group B. There will always be 25 people participating in Science 7. 5 of them will always be online. 10 of them will switch back and forth between being in the building and being online.
So so the lesson plan will go straight through Tuesday through Friday continuously, and the kids will just jumping in and out online, so they're not missing. So
Correct.
if Monday you're learning math,
Well, Monday is still,
Or
it's
Tuesday,
still a
rather.
learning
I'm
day
sorry.
for children, but there will be no instructional.
Correct. They'll be
There's
on-
no scheduled instruction on that
They'll
day,
be-
but they'll be working on
Your
assignments
Google-
posted and communications,
Right.
right?
So what I'm saying is from Tuesday to Friday, if they're in class or not in class, it will go straight through like if they were in a regular classroom.
Correct. I likened it to what we have created now, and acknowledging the difficult work that our teachers are still working on getting used to. We've created television studios in each classroom, and those television studios are broadcasting out to homes. That feed will continue, scheduled as needed, but the direction and expectation from my office through our system is every class, every day, live. There has to be some live experience every single day. Some days it might be a 10-minute touch base. Okay, everybody, you've got the assignment, you know what's posted, you're going to work in small groups, and you're going to get yourselves out working on the groups when we're done with this live, and we'll come back together again tomorrow to check on how you're doing. 10-minute little introduction, here's what you have to do, get going, get working on it. Wonderful. There was a live touch-in, so our children are seeing our teachers and vice versa. Some periods, for a middle school class or a high school class, it might run the whole 42 or 3 minutes.
See that? Okay, see, that's where I'm getting confused, because if they're supposed to be in school all day, shouldn't they be online all day?
That's what I just said.
Yeah, but you're saying they're going in for 10 minutes and the teacher's pulling back out.
Correct. Well,
But then,
but
then they're not, and what happens if they have questions because they're not sure how it works?
I mean, questions are no problem. There's the live chat, there's email, the teacher's still going to be there. But even in a regular classroom, you're not directly engaged with every single child all 42 minutes. You have an introduction at the beginning of the class, then the children begin working on an assignment, and you monitor to make sure that they're working on the assignment. That may still be very appropriate. What I didn't want to do and won't do is set a minimum or maximum amount of time for live. I'm sorry, I won't set a maximum amount of time for live or homework. I will establish the minimum expectation is every class, every day must be live. So.
Anybody else? Yes, I have
excuse me, I have a bunch of questions, but let me just make sure before I get started. I got questions on your presentation, but then you want to discuss with the board whether we move ahead. Is that a different discussion
Yes.
later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the question is, I don't understand the way you're describing what the difference is in the student experience when they're sitting in a classroom versus sitting online at home or wherever they are. So let me just give you an example. So today, a teacher manages a class by being in front of a computer in a Google Meet session and managing between screens, however that may be. It could be a spreadsheet, it could be a presentation material, it could be some tool that you use to draw or write, whatever. And everybody sees the same screen. And there's the interaction capabilities with chat and raise your hand and all that good stuff, right? So now you're going to have people in a classroom and people in front of the computer at home.
Yes.
Are the people in the classroom basically going to see the same thing, a screen on a smartboard that looks like the same thing that everybody's at home, and the interaction is going to be no different? Or is there going to be some kind of an interaction in person like would be a normal class if this environment wasn't here, such as a teacher getting up, writing on the board, moving around the classroom, whatever? I'm not quite sure the way you described it, if any of that's going to happen, or they're just going to be doing the same thing at a desk in front of a computer, just people will physically be there.
So I don't know how best to describe it so that there's clarity, but we are going to be providing all students every day with a live class. So the teacher is going to be teaching to the children.
Right.
Some of the children are live in front of them.
Yeah.
Some of the children are live online.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how...
The question is the media, to me. Like
Well,
the media,
the teacher's physically in a room, John.
but I know, but if the teacher is physically in a room and there wasn't an online component, they could be doing different things. They could be on a projector, they could be
They're
standing
going
on
to
the
be
board.
doing that.
Still be
They're
around.
still going to be doing that.
Okay, so they're going to do that. So the person that's sitting in online, they're going to see that how? As like some kind of widescreen webcam or something?
Well, I didn't do a good job of clarifying it, but we have literally created television studios in every classroom that's going to be broadcasting out live. They can cast their screen from their smartboards into their Google Meets, so the media that they're going to be using for the instruction, children at home will be seeing what's on the smartboard.
So so they'll see a switch of maybe a widescreen shot of the classroom while the teacher's talking, and then maybe move to the contents of the smartboard, and then depending on how the teacher manages it.
Correct.
And the teacher
Not an easy experience.
Is the teachers ready for this? Because I mean, this is a pretty big leap from where we were going to do separate online academy with different teachers or a service or whatever, to the TV studio approach. And don't get me wrong, if we can pull this off, it'd be great. It just seems like we just took a giant leap from where we were 2 weeks ago to now, and 2 to 3 weeks from now, this is going to go live. I'd like to just get, at some point tonight, I'd like to hear the detail of how this is going to work and how everybody's going to come up to speed.
There's not much more detail that I can provide you than what I just provided, though, John. So I will answer your question is, are our teachers ready today for this? No. We're still working out kinks. We're still getting used to doing the live meets. Having broadcasting happening from our classrooms out to homes was brand new last week.
Okay.
That never happened in any classroom in the school district. We had one small experience with distance learning through BOCES with a closed circuit system. So last week was our first experiences, and Tuesday, full day experiences for full learning for this broadcast model. So we will become more experienced over the next couple of weeks on that piece. Our people are very experienced of having children in the classroom and using all the different media. The leap was creating the experience so that those at home can, as best as possible, experience what's going on in the classroom. It will not be perfect, but if we're going to wait for perfect, we're just going to keep on kicking the date down the road for what I'm suggesting as no reason right now. We need to dive into this, in my world, and get going on it, and learn from all the mistakes that there will be.
Okay. I'll hold more of my discussion points till we get into it later. Just one other question, though. We have now the technology in place in every classroom that's going to participate in this, or that's still work to be done too?
It's a reality for every single school district everywhere is wrestling with the quality of the full internet experience. We have plenty of bandwidth. We have solid backbone and wiring. We have solid servers and switches. We're great there. There are breakdowns that happen all the time. Some of those breakdowns are at a very localized level. The camera that's plugged into that computer went kaplooey, or wasn't syncing correctly, or we ordered 30 of them and the ones that were supposed to be spec'd properly, according to what you read on the package, actually weren't. So they had to be swapped. So the last week and a half has been challenging.
No, you're on the availability issues. I'm talking more about the TV studio.
Yeah.
as
Oh,
you
that's what I'm
described.
talking about.
But is that in place even with all the bugs
Yeah.
in all these classrooms?
Yeah.
Every classroom.
That's how they're doing it
Yeah.
now.
6 through 12
That's happening right now.
in a broadcast type.
Yeah. That's how the live.
But my understanding is, but most of them as the teachers with the webcam pointing at their head, like the students, right?
We actually have yeah. I don't understand
Well,
what
but
I'm
now
not
you're
saying
talking
right.
about the live experience where they might be seeing the teacher up at the whiteboard or doing these other activities, which would imply the camera is now off the computer and into some.
It can be any way that the teacher wants to direct it, so they
But
can.
all that's there is what my
Yeah.
question was.
Yep.
It's just how.
Do we need to continue buying more? Absolutely. But these folks have been working feverishly to get these classrooms set up to be broadcast
And it
studios.
sounds like the teachers, how they choose to use it, there's flexibility there.
Well, flexibility, first of all, I've said it to our teachers, in front of our teachers and our administrative staff, we administratively have to be very flexible as they're moving into this experience because it's brand new and it's uncharted and it's hard. So we have to be very flexible and help them learn. And there's also a steep learning curve for some that are comfortable right out of the box because they've done it before, and some that are learning that, hey, how do we do this on two different screens so I can see my content and I can see my
Exactly
children at
what
the
I'm
same
thinking,
time.
yeah.
So there's a steep learning curve, and we have our folks, our tech TAs, John Morello, our tech specialist, Robin's group, running around like crazy trying to help everyone learn. Will we get better every week? Absolutely. Will we be better in November than we were in October? Absolutely.
Karen?
Yes, I have two questions, two comments. My first question basically builds off of Mr. Mullen. He asked you about how the classes were set up K through 8. You answered, and if I understood this correctly, K through 5, there's 6 integrated sections, and 2 of the 6 will be fully online. Am I correct with that? Did I understand
To
that
the
correctly?
extent possible, yes. There might be some ICT sections that we have to blend a little bit, integrated co-teach, that we have to blend a little bit.
Can you tell me what's going to happen with the 6 through 8 as well?
6 through 12 will be 1 through 9. 6 through 12 is
So there
periods
is
1
no
through 9.
separation between the remote learning and the hybrid, it's all
Correct.
the same. So my other question is, my second question with that is, when the elementary school, the K through 5 that are going to be remote, that's going to be a different teacher, if I understand that correct. So are the parents going to be guaranteed that that the work in the hybrid model and the work in the online school for K-5 will be the same type of curriculum, same type of rigor, same type of assignments?
Yes. So this slide here, I addressed that because it's another great question. In-person students and online students will participate fully in the same New York State curriculum. The expectation is they're the same team. They're
So
the
it's the same curriculum, but could be displayed in a different format as long as it's covering the same standards?
Well, no, because you're still going to have the same issue. Remember, all that we're doing is separating out, because the numbers work out, where you've got 2 sections that are fully online, but the other 4 sections, they're going to be going back and forth every day. Half of them are going to be in, half of them are going to be out.
That I understand. It's
So-
more the remote with the online.
Yeah, but
are they-
it's just like, think about it this way, Karen. Think about it as my daughter gets teacher A, your daughter gets teacher B. we're both teaching the same curriculum. Your daughter's opted to be fully online,
Okay.
so she's getting 4 days of online instruction. My daughter opted to go in, so she's going to get 2 days online, 2 days in class.
So my question would be, though, when you have something like that, and I know that you can do this different ways with different teachers, but is the kids in school going to have the actual test where for end of unit chapter, where the kids online might have a choice board with different things to do?
But Karen, the same people, you're having the same problem with the classroom, because the day you give the test, only half your students are in class.
Right. That's
So
just
yeah,
trying to
so
clarify. In my
you're
own-
gonna,
Right.
as we go through this, some portion of every class is going to be online. No
Okay.
teacher's teaching a class of everybody in the building. Because even an in-person, when we're dealing with the elementary school specifically, even there, half of every in-person class is going to be online on any given day.
And this,
I
let me
have two
talk to that too,
What?
Karen, let me just give you a little answer on that too. So I think actually this bleeds back to the flexibility piece too, because right now, we're in a projection mode. We're projecting what we think it's going to be like once our professionals are working on this, because we've never done it. So once we get going on it, they're experts in their area. No matter what subject it is, no matter what grade level it is, they know what has to be taught and they know how to teach it. It's a first-year teacher experience for all of them because nobody's ever done this before. So will the first week of October be different than the second week of October? Well, absolutely, because they'll learn a little bit more about a better way to do it so that it becomes a more seamless experience.
So my two comments. My first one is about the computers that you're going to send down, the new ones to the high school that are touchscreen. I really encourage us to look at that because touchscreen works so much better with the K1 too. It just seems we're teaching them keyboarding skills which they don't even know, but they're coming into school with touchscreen skills because they're so used to using iPads and telephones. It might be better if we did it the other way. I know we like to get the more advanced technology.
No, there's a
too.
real purpose for it.
Okay.
And it points more back towards the math experiences and having that touchscreen capability to be able to manipulate on their screen.
That makes
Is a
sense.
key piece for the math. So it's a specific purpose for
Especially like
using
with
them.
Desmos and
And then
programs
certainly
like that.
going forward, the prices for touchscreen systems has come down significantly. So
You hit my
all
point,
of them
math.
are going to be that. So
You know, as a math science person.
Okay.
My other question and comment is about, you made a comment about the classrooms being like a television studio. And my question, I got the opportunity this week to talk to 2 teachers on Long Island whose school districts are already doing what we're doing, and the teachers are very stressed. And I do want to tell you that one of the things that I come across looking at your perspective is in a television studio, you have 2 people. You have the talent and you have the producers. And the talent would be our teachers, and the producers would be someone running the equipment. And I can tell you, when I used to do webinars when I was a professional developer, and I would do 150 people, we used to have me as the talent, and then I would have a producer helping me run the equipment. So my concern is when you're doing a course, because sometimes my webinars were live and online, there's a number that's a breaking point. So it almost is like you need 2 people in that room. When you have a integrated teaching, you have usually 2 teachers in that classroom. When you have special ed, you have teachers and usually a teaching assistant. But your general ed teachers don't have that extra person.
Correct.
It's going to be much more stressful
Yep.
for them because there's not going to be somebody to go into that producer role. So I'm a little concerned for the well-being of our teachers and the stress with this from what I've heard from the people from Long Island. So I'm encouraging our school district to talk to some of those Long Island school districts and find out what they're doing for the teachers and what do we have in place for supports for these teachers.
Right.
If something goes down, is something in place for them? And I'm not knocking our
No, I
technology, we're a
get you. Yep.
top-notch district. I'm worried about the teachers' well-being.
that's one of the reasons why I started the way I did with acknowledging the difficult work that's going on right now. We would love to add more people to be producers. It's not fiscally possible for us to do that. We do have a strong tech squad that is staffed with our tech TAs, led by Ms. Hecht and John Morallo, and they are omnipresent. They're everywhere. So would we like more of them? Yeah, but it's not fiscally possible. But I understand what you're saying, and that's why my hat's off to our professionals that are doing this, because it's not easy.
We just need the TAs if we're gonna, and I see the districts and what's going on, and I know we're not the only district voting to go back. I mean, there's others in the area surrounding us. Wallkill last night voted if they were going back or not. So, and next week, I believe, I don't know if it's public or not, but one of our other local districts is voting to go back. So I think we need to talk to
Absolutely.
these other school districts to find out, and if you need some names to contact,
Ms. Hecht
I'm
is
happy
on.
to share.
Ms. Hecht is on meetings with them
Oh, perfect.
every
Okay.
other day. So, yes.
Mike?
Thank you.
So, so Monday remains collaboration day.
Correct.
Tuesday through Friday then will be 4 separate individual classes. So if you're teaching science, for example, you won't be replicating anything.
Correct.
So then what happens when you have a lab on an A day? You don't repeat that lab again on a B day. The people that are at home and the online people don't have the benefit of the tools and supplies that we have here in school. How do we work around that?
Right. So the science departments in both buildings have been working on a strategy and some guidance from the state and other local districts on how to deal with the science lab piece of things. Remember, we're creating a system right now that is getting our children back into our schools. The hope is that we've built in enough of the safety protocols so that they stay. Does the potential exist that they're going to stay? Absolutely. Does the potential exist that something happens, that there's an outbreak and there's going to be temporary or longer-term disruptions? Maybe.
Oh, my greater
So we
concern
have
is-
to be prepared to pivot to non-physical experiences for the lab requirement for Regents classes. So those are things that are under development as we speak.
Exactly. And then just one other thing, and I don't know if this is major or minor.
By the way, we also have a courier system set up, and it will become more robust, so that when there's a need for us to deliver materials out to homes, we will also do that.
Oh, that's good.
So I saw it happen with kindergarten. I saw it happen with our Chromebooks. We have the food service program going on all the time. So that's another piece that will be a developed element as we need. Art teachers are talking about how can we get art supplies out to our homes and things like that too. So it will be a growth experience for us.
And my other concern is with respect to attendance. Could you explain how that happens? Because if you have an A, a B, and an online, you could be blowing the first 20 minutes of your class just seeing who's there.
Yeah.
Right. So the Google Meet system has actually in it an attendance grabber that you can technically do the attendance after the fact, but attendance still has to be taken in our school tool system so that we can see who is participating and attending.
Right, because you don't want teachers there till 9 o'clock at night after the fact trying to figure out who was
Correct.
there and who logged
Correct.
in, whatever.
And there are some electronic means for that to happen, and again, I think that will also be something that will develop with time.
James?
Just jumping on the attendance piece, something a lot of families I've spoken to are concerned about is on the virtual days, especially now moving to this model where we're pushing for live every day. What about families who can't be live on the days they're not in building? Are they going to be able to see the lessons later and log in and watch that video, being that, if it is 10 minutes or it is 42 minutes, is there going to be flexibility for families? Because I know that's a major concern for a lot of the families I've spoken to.
So, Ms. Hecht, I don't know if you can speak to some of that, but these are some of the pieces of details that our team leaders and our department chairs are working on with our families, with our teachers, on how to address that component. Effectively, what we're creating here, and in that way it would be a third, we're really creating 2 schools. We're creating the school for the children that are physically present, and we're creating this online school. And to be as effective as possible, we're pancaking the in-person and online for 6 through 12. And then another offshoot of that is, well, what about the children that can't sync work synchronously, but also what about the children that are absent? Those are challenges that we have when we have everybody present. You still have to reteach material when a child is absent. So that'll be a new learning experience for all of us, and how do we duplicate that experience for the child that wasn't able to participate? And do we have to develop some other element of our model for what's the volume? Is it 5 people, 50 people, 500 people? And what do we have to do to address that? So I don't know if you have more on that, Ms. Heck.
I mean, we are approaching it as if it was in person and when a student is absent. And Ms. Walsh and I actually were just meeting this afternoon or yesterday afternoon with regards to the last period of the day. So if a child missed or if a child was ill, you know, how would we work that out? So, and it's being worked on in all the buildings at this time.
Joanne, you had another
Yeah,
question?
I have a couple of them. One, do all the whiteboards work? Because I know last year there were some issues with quite a few of them.
Can I
so-
answer?
Yeah.
What I think the percentage, and Mike Bicazzi, it's a guess, but 95% of them are very good. 5% of them are in the process of being replaced. But those that are in classrooms right now are functional. Some are significantly more functional than others. We are in a replacement phase. Some I think Mike's got something like 60 or 80 of the smart boards are being replaced under the Smart Schools bond. So that's in process also.
And so when will they be replaced? Will they be
We have to
replaced
get, we have
before
to,
October 6th?
no, it's not on the short-term, Joanne, I'm going to give you the real answer. It's not on the short-term radar because all of our effort right now is getting these broadcasts and our hybrid and blended models running. If I was to direct Mike to stop all of that and take all of his tech staff to go and order, bring in, and install smart boards, we wouldn't be ready for in-person learning until December.
Well, you can't expect the teacher to do their job if their smart boards aren't
works.
working.
They
and
work.
But
they work, Joanne.
And to teach our students.
Joanne, I'm not. The smart boards work.
And have all the teachers been taught the technology that you're doing right now? Do they all know how to do it? Are there going to be
Two different questions. Have they been taught, and
have they taught and are they?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
Have they been taught, and have they been given the opportunity to learn about it? Yes. There are varying degrees of their knowledge base with that, because some are brand new to this. Some it's automatic and easy. So there's a learning curve for everyone.
So do we know which percentage that is? I mean, is it
I
half the
didn't-
teachers,
didn't-
3/4 of the teachers?
90%,
5%?
95%.
95% of pros
Let
on this?
me put it this way: 0% have any experience doing what we're going to do on October 6th.
I'm not,
0%.
I just feel like that
We
we're really
won't have
rushing
that-
into this
We won't have that experience until we begin.
because we
And
went.
when we begin, they will get more experienced and better at it each and every time.
So my other question is, with the scanners and everything else, takes your temperature, but if I come in and I have cold or sinus infection or whatever, and I don't have a fever, that means I still get to come through the door, but COVID also has
Correct.
attacked people's sinuses.
Correct.
So there's no way of stopping that.
Correct.
I'm just, and how are we cleaning the buildings? Are the air, have
We
the
went through that
filters
last
been all
time, and I have the
changed in
slides
each one of
for
the
it.
buildings?
So we're fully ready to, not fully ready, we are cleaning the facilities significantly every single day.
Okay, so all the air filters have been changed and
Yep,
and up to date with
absolutely.
code and everything?
Yes.
I'm just, and the other thing is the bus company up and ready to run?
Yes.
James?
One more from me, I promise. With us going back this new hybrid model and not knowing a real date on when first, second, and third graders are going to be provided technology, that just seems like a big problem.
It's a very good point. I don't know if you know the number offhand, Mrs. Walsh, but meets have been happening last week and this week, and anecdotally, I know of extremely high percentages of participation. So that is something that the principals are, at all levels, by the way, are paying very careful attention to so that we can use that CNC day to make sure that we're connecting with families that are not connecting and finding out why. And I know that that's something that Mrs. Hecht is hyper-focused on. Do you know of any anomalies in those 1, 2, 3 grades as far as participation trouble, Ms. Hecht, Ms. Walsh, by any chance?
We address them as they come up. For example, today I got one from a teacher in kindergarten. I made the call to the family and
But that wasn't because of a device.
no, was just not participating. So I'm not sure why.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Well, I
So
have-
then there's
Joanne,
that
Joanne.
level of communication is essential. I mean, that is the purpose for that Monday, but we don't want to wait weekly. It's ongoing so that we can, teachers want to make sure they connect with all their kids. And when there's a problem connecting, whether they just didn't participate or they can't participate, teachers want to work with the principals, team leaders, Ms. Hecht's office to figure out why so we can plug those gaps. There is a small number of machines that Ms. Hecht has been handing out in those grades where we know that there are some serious problems of access.
I think
But we will monitor.
We've really talked about the schedule portion. Why don't we let Mike finish the presentation portion, and then we'll go down only if it's schedule related.
It is, and it's a question and a comment. My comment is, I applaud you and your team. I think you've done a wonderful job, very futuristic in setting this up and getting this planned and out to the students. Our students really need to get back into the schools, and they need athletic activities, and they need clubs, and they need things to do after school as well. My comment, though, those of you that know me know I'm a 3D thinker, and I'm a person that looks at something from every perspective in a box. We also know that NYSED has come out with the thing this year to pilot snow days virtually and to get rid of snow days in New York State. I am asking you, are we doing that this year? Because if that's the monkey wrench that we're going to throw into this, I personally think we should not opt into that, where we have enough changes and the teachers have enough on their plate. But if we and the kids need to play on snow days outside. Are we going to opt into that? And if we do opt into that, are we going to have it so that the kids, when they miss that day, are the schedule going to be just continued, that if it was an A day that was snow day, it would be an A day the next day, or a B day?
It'd just be a snow day.
So just so the public is aware, what the question is, the State Education Department notified school districts last week, I believe it was early in the week, that it would be entering or would be giving school districts an option to participate in a pilot program for the 2021 school year to have virtual snow days. And that was it. That was the entire communication.
Yes,
So
you
it
are
didn't
correct.
say, click here to opt in, here's regulations. There's no additional information, no sign up yet. So honestly, it's sitting on my desk, waiting for the next step so I can learn more about what it is to even make a decision as to whether it'd be something I would recommend or not. So there's too much not known about it. So
I agree.
fantastic question, but there's too many unknowns to even address it. So until the state comes out with more information, I'm on hold.
Okay.
John?
Just real quick on the schedule, it's on the chart following this. So just so I'm clear, 6 to 12, whether you're sitting in an online or sitting in a classroom, you're going to be in a regular 9-period, 42-minute schedule.
Correct.
So that's, now there were lots of reasons behind taking that 9-period and spreading it over 2 days
Correct.
for the full online. So what's
now I'm
going to
confused.
be different, or what's the logic behind the fact that we can jump into that now, but we couldn't at the beginning?
Significant, not heated, but significant professional and appropriate debate and dialogue about the two models occurred over the last several weeks. And a commitment that we will begin with the 1 through 9 model because that's how our master schedules were built. And to rebuild it into a block schedule with just a few weeks' time to do it is impossible. But a commitment that we will look at what this 9-period experience is, what it means for screen time, what it means for fatigue, what it means for our daily grind, and assess as we go along, and maybe in the long run look at other models. But this is where we are collectively as a staff, and I like to think that my roots are like an oak, but my top branches do bend sometimes. So that's one of those pieces that I had to spend some time really having a strong talk with our staff to say we've got to make sure that we do this very well and make sure we're not grinding ourselves and our children in a way that is not beneficial educationally.
Okay. So Mike, go ahead and why don't we go through the rest of the presentation?
Yes. So one of my, I'm sorry, one more. So for our return to learn, I will have a recommendation at the end of this slide set for the Board of Education to consider and act on to bring our children back into this blended model beginning October 6th, and that will be a K-12 experience. Coinciding with that, we also have an athletic change. So the State Athletic Association in Section 9 has opened up athletics. The state has opened it up beginning September 21st. Competition will begin for the 3 seasons on November 30th, first season, I should say, on November 30th, and that would be what would traditionally look like a winter season. Our fall season will begin in March, and the spring season would begin in April. There are some specific details about some of these sports that I didn't put on this slide because the documentation from the Athletic Association is voluminous, but our athletic director would be, and is already, managing all of these along with the Section 9 and Mahal group so that we can field these teams. The recommendation that Jonna and I both have is that off-season conditioning can begin after our students return, so that would be after October 5th. So off-season conditioning could begin at her direction, sport by sport, coach by coach, following all Department of Health guidelines, all State Athletic Association guidelines, and all expectations of the Section 9 League. And she would be very strict in adhering, that our coaches adhere to all of those required elements for our off-season conditioning. And then the competitions would be, thank you, the competitions would be at the direction of the section. So all of those schedules are in process through the athletic directors within the section for these different sports. And like I said, some of the sports are still questionable. For example, wrestling is on hold, and there are some of the other sports that are a little detail-oriented as far as how those will actually be played. But Jonna is very comfortable with the recommendation, as am I, to begin our off-season conditioning on October 5th and fully participating in every sport that we can field a team for every sport that fields a schedule of competitions with these dates.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Does this include just JV and varsity, or does it also include the modified teams?
All 3 levels, modified,
Perfect.
JV, and varsity.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have another question with that. In the high school, I know they use the weight room quite a bit, and there's lots of kids in there at the same time. So what would the capacity be? Because you're saying that they can go train for football now and basketball. And
I didn't say that. Off-season off-season conditioning can begin after October 5th, and the athletic director will carefully coordinate all of those sport by sport, coach by coach, to adhere to all Department of Health guidelines.
So I'm kind of confused because if we're doing basketball and if they're training for football come March, you're not going to be able to put 30 kids in the weight room.
But Joanne, he just said
I didn't
that
say
the
that.
athletic director is going to manage the capacities to
So
meet the
what-
Department of Health guidelines.
Okay, so what would be the capacity for the weight room?
I don't have that number, and the weight room is also going to be off limits for a period of time because it's going to be under construction. So that may not be a facility we can use. This is not a presentation for how we're going to do all this stuff. The presentation is if the board is comfortable with us beginning that work, adhering to all the required guidelines, our athletic director and I are comfortable with us moving forward. If the board wants us to hold off on that process for another meeting, I would have to put another presentation together with details. That's not what I'm recommending
Again,
tonight, though.
right, but you're asking us to bring the kids back and bring everything back,
Yes.
and yet there's no answers on how many kids you're going to put in the room and how many kids we're going to have in the gym and how many kids.
Yes.
So
But
those are
Joanne-
the questions I would
There
like
is.
answered.
There is an answer. The Department of Health guidelines are specific to how many people and in what ways you can participate in any of these sports. We will follow all of those guidelines because it's not just about the weight room. It's also about
Correct.
how you work outdoors. It's also about how you work in other facilities. It's
And
also about
and
how you do chalk work. It's also about how you do...
And how many kids are going to be in the gym and how we're going to do it and how
Yes.
many feet you have to stay apart because
Yes.
once they start sweating, there's a guideline, they have to stay further apart
That's
from
why
each
we have
other
an
instead of
athletic
6
director
feet.
to deal with all of those details.
Okay. Quick question, two quick questions. So
Is your mic on, John? Okay, yeah, you gotta talk into it.
Two quick questions. Is this athletic plan contingent on the hybrid plan going back at October 6th? Or if that was to get delayed for some reason, could this still continue as planned here, the athletics portion? In
Right, good.
particular, what I should be more clear, in particular, the off-season conditioning.
Yeah, good question. So at the end of the presentation, I have 4 actions for the board to consider
Okay,
that separate this all out.
okay.
Right now, the way that the state's set up is off-season conditioning could begin after September 21st.
Regardless of
Right.
anything. Okay, good.
Jonna and I are not comfortable with that date because we haven't returned children to our schools. So we wanted the 2 experiences to coincide at the same time. Having our athletes begin at the same time as our students begin in the classroom also doesn't make a hypocritical experience. We feel that after October 5th, beginning October 6th, we are comfortable to bring our children back in. We will have the practices in place for safety and security, and we are comfortable with bringing our athletes back in very, very slowly and carefully at the direction of the athletic director, coach by coach, sport by sport, to assure that we can keep our athletes safe. Because it doesn't do us any good to start a sport that then gets infected, that then shuts down.
Right.
So we want to do it very judiciously and very carefully. And anybody that knows John O'Donnell, she's a very detail-oriented person that will not allow anything to happen unless it's happening right.
And then second question is, does this imply certain sports are going to overlap and people can't play both? So, for example, football players won't be able to play baseball and there's other variations.
I don't think that it's designed
No,
that way, Jonna.
No?
Yeah,
Go ahead, yeah. Yeah, it's fine.
we can't hear it.
I'll-
No,
okay,
you gotta come to the microphone,
I'm
otherwise
sorry.
people online can't hear what you're saying.
I'm on the Section 9 and MHL scheduling committee, and the way we're designing it is that there will be no overlap. Students will not have to choose sports if they do overlap. So no, we're going to set up the schedule so that each kid can participate in the sport that they want during the season.
But okay, now I'm confused. So in other words, if one of the kids wanted to play football and baseball like they do now, they'd still be able to do that, correct?
I think that's what she just said. There won't be any
Well,
overlap. Yeah,
just- yeah.
no overlap.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next piece that we spoke about last time was facility use. The Board of Education has a current policy 3280 that has 7 user groups. The first 4 user groups are directly associated with the school district, some profit and nonprofit. So group 1 is sponsored events from the school district, athletic games, PTA, extra classrooms. There's no charge for that, and they get first choice at the facilities. Group 2 would be adult ed. Examples of group 2 would be adult ed, girls and boys, Boy Scouts, and also any of those organizations that are within the Marlboro School District. Group 3 would be fire police, officially sanctioned town of Marlboro rec programs. Again, no charge. And then group 4, not-for-profit groups that are based within the confines of the Marlboro School District, such as youth organizations not officially necessarily sanctioned by the town of Marlboro. Those may have a fee structure associated with them. The recommendation that our facilities director and our assistant superintendent for Personnel and Business and myself have is that we open our facilities outdoor only, not indoor facilities, to these 4 groups, adhering to all Department of Health guidelines. So temperature checking and the required questionnaire that all the folks here tonight had to answer will also have to be administered to all outdoor user groups for these facilities.
So, Mike, we talked a little bit about this last meeting. What's your thoughts, and what'd you conclude about why you're going outdoors and not indoors?
When you go to indoor, it adds a dynamic on that we're not comfortable doing yet, because we're going to be using all of our manpower and woman power to operate our existing new programming beginning October 6th and a sports program. That there's a lot that goes on in a building to manage that too, and ensure that those spaces are cleaned and sanitized prior to our children using those spaces the next day is too much of a heavy lift for us. So I think it might be a future thought, but not a soon future thought as far as our recommendation.
Can I propose that we look at maybe Saturdays to open up the gyms to some of these, like, I'll give an example, like maybe Marlboro Youth Basketball, having it Saturdays opened up for maybe a modified controlled league?
Well, I think what they're talking about is for the right now, immediately. I think as every board meeting, as time passes, we could look at what things and how things are progressing.
Because I was thinking Saturday we'd have time to clean afterwards,
Yeah, but-
and then we'd open it up even to the Marlboro Youth Softball and Baseball, where they could have their pitching on Saturday.
Yeah, but again, we run into the same issue where you're using that staff, and we have to clean those facilities much more than we do now, and it'd be an additional cost
Okay.
to us.
There may be a moment when we're ready to cross that horizon. As we sit today, it's not something that I'm comfortable directing Larry to have his staff work towards. So at some point in time, we will get comfortable and more comfortable with our new return to learn experiences and can cross into that frontier, but not today.
I respect that.
The crawl then walk, and I think, I agree. I think we want to get everything open as quick as we can to everybody, but I think we want to get successful at these next first steps
Okay.
before.
So next steps that we have to deal with after this, clubs and activities for our students is an area that we haven't fully vetted out yet. We will be having a recommendation for the Board of Education. Actually, it really won't take board action. We will have, because the board has already discussed it and supported it, we want to have club and activity experiences for our children. They will be virtual experiences, so our staff that are typically our club and activity advisors will be producing proposals for our principals to consider on how they'll run their class or their club virtually. So we can get our kids other experiences besides, I was going to say books and paper, screens and keyboards.
Okay.
So that's a next step. Continuing our technology investments. We need to continue improving our purchases. We need to get more supplies continuously. We need to continue to upgrade and get better and better, not just with the physical hardware, but also with our training and our knowledge base. That will be something that will be ongoing, always learning. I'm putting out the call again, and if there's anyone listening to this broadcast or here in this audience that has any connection in the world of Chromebook procurement, we have on order 500 Chromebooks. If we can get anyone in that supply chain that can move those 500 along quicker or find a better supply for us so we can get those Chromebooks quicker. I've joked, but it's not a joke. Chromebooks are the new toilet paper, and they are very, very difficult to find. So there are a lot out there if you go on to Best Buy, but they're very expensive Chromebooks, and you can only get 3 of them. So we need 500. We have them on order. They are in our queue to get them, but if someone can get them to us quicker, and you have a great connection, 236-5802. Please call me as soon as you can. And then we're continuing to monitor state and federal political climate. As I had said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm disgusted by the way our State and federal politicians are behaving and holding our children hostage, and I will be meeting with Senator Skoufis and Assemblyman Jacobson, and I encourage everyone to call those two offices to make sure that they understand that this process that they're putting our schools through is disgusting. It would be disgusting in any normal year, in a year when we're dealing with a pandemic and wrestling with what we're wrestling with, to be threatened with 20% of our aid hanging over our head is irresponsible. So we can go back to any slide for any questions, but I have 4 actions that I'm asking the board to consider tonight for my recommendation. Open all schools for in-person and online learning models beginning Tuesday, October 6th is one of those actions. Allowing for modified junior varsity and varsity sports to begin off-season conditioning after October 6th. Allow for modified junior varsity and varsity sports to return to competition as per New York State Department of Health, NISPA, and Section 9 rules after October 6th. Allow for exterior facility use as per Board Policy 3280 for groups 1 through 4 beginning Monday, September 22nd, 2020.
Okay, so procedurally, being these are going to be action items,
Yep.
What we should do is they'll be under the recommended action section, all 4 of these. So rather than this way, if the public has comments specifically to these 4 action items, they'll be allowed to discuss them during the public comment period.
Okay.
Being we'll add them, they'll be added as a recommended action.
Right.
And then we'll do our normal motions, seconds, and then we can have open discussions about them. This way, procedurally, we're following our normal setup.
Right.
Frank,
Sounds good.
with those, I think each one of them should be separated.
Yeah, they're 4 action items.
Okay,
Yep.
as long as we're not blocking them like.
No, 4 action items.
Consent agenda.
Nope.
Consent agenda, also, you know.
They're all
a lot
not
in there, too.
contingent on each other.
No, they're 4 separate action items.
The only thing I'm confused with is we talked, and it was modified was included, but when you read them off, it only said JV and varsity.
Correct.
I'm sorry. Modified junior varsity and varsity off-season to begin October 6th. Modified junior varsity and varsity sports competition to begin after October 6th, as per Section 9, New York State, DOH, et cetera.
And then we can
all
ask
3 levels.
questions.
Yeah, and that's, we'll do the normal first, second, and then discussion
Sounds good.
before we vote.
And
Okay.
with that, I have nothing else to report.
Okay. So, now if we get back to here. Okay, so at this time, we'll move to public comment on the agenda item. Public comment on the agenda, each speaker shall state their name, the town of those 4 recommended actions we just answered. So if anybody has any public comment, please come to the microphone.
Good evening. My name's Patty LaFaro. Can you hear me okay through this? Yes. My name's Patty LaFaro. I am a resident, and I'm also an educator. I have over 20 years of experience in public education. I have a rising senior. Actually, I think she's on her way here. She's at basketball. She actually asked me to speak on her behalf to you, the Board of Education. I acknowledge you for your work. As most of you know, I'm passionate about education, and I was given one job to do in my life, and that was to raise my kids and make sure they had a quality education. And I'm determined to see that through, and I'm asking for your help. Our children need you to vote yes to all of these 4 agenda items, and I thank you for putting the plan together. And not only do our kids need to be in school October 6th, but they need to be in school every single day. And
Okay, please.
thank you. And I know I speak for so many people who don't have the understanding of education. So I speak in unified voice for our community. And I acknowledge anyone who chooses to stay home. That's your choice. But I have the right. My child has the right to a public education. And October 6th, I want those doors open, and I acknowledge all the health measures and the plan that has been put together. But our children, every day, are losing quality instruction. I'm a school counselor. I'm telling you emotionally, you know my children. I have 2 very well-rounded children that I'm very proud of. They're suffering. I have a senior who takes 4 college courses. I want to acknowledge the teachers' efforts. What we're asking these teachers to do is, I commend all of them. I'm one of them. But when I walk down my stairs and I see my senior athlete, captain of the basketball team, spinning in a chair, it concerns me greatly. Greatly. And I'm asking, Mr. Brooks, I acknowledge your plan. I sense some resistance. I'm asking, I'm begging each of you to vote yes. Get our children back. Miss O'Donnell, I know her thorough work. She's gotten my children where they are, and she will do due diligence to keep our kids safe. If we wait for the exact plan, we're going to lose time. Every 2 months that a child loses instruction over the summer, do you know that they're losing 3 to 4 levels of reading? Our kids have been out of school for 6 months. They're not learning at home, people. They're not, despite the efforts. So I'm begging you all to vote yes to these considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on the agenda items?
Amy Hymick from Marlboro. My son is in 10th grade. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done. This is obviously a big task, a lot of coordination. I want to acknowledge all that work. Very appreciative of that. I am also begging you to vote yes. Our children need to go back to school. And I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I know you have a lot of things you got to kind of iron out. We have to see how everything goes, hopefully on October 6th. But are people talking? Are there plans behind the scenes about a full return? And then my other thing is, what is the plan for all this instruction that's being missed on Mondays? That would be like having a snow day every week. How are the kids going to meet the curriculum requirements if we're missing instruction 1 day a week? I want my son to do well. I don't want this to be a domino effect going forward, 11th grade, 12th grade, putting him behind. So I would like to know what the plan for that is, for that lost instruction.
Thank you.
I spoke 2 weeks ago, parent of 2 girls. I have a senior as well. I actually let her go ice skating today. She just can't do this. She cannot. You have to get our kids back. I'm sorry I get emotional. I work in the schools. I work with special ed kids. They're back. I got kicked today, spit on. But you know what? Over 90% effective. We've got to move forward. This is the new way of life. This is how we need to roll. We need to just go with it and get our kids back. It's important. I got to get my kid off to college. I got my other kid in 7th grade in her room in front of that screen wearing those darn glasses that hurt her eyes. We need to get them back. I know it's difficult. I'm in it with you. I'm an educator too. I wear 2 hats in my building. I'm an OT and I do assistive technology with all the kids in my district. I know the challenge. I support you all. I support all educators. I need this for my kids. Please, please vote yes.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Hagan. I live in Marlboro now. I moved to this district because the school district was supposed to be amazing. Well, it is everything but not, starting with what happened here. I spoke to Mr. Brooks 2 days ago, which informed me that in October, the children will only be going to school 2 days a week not 5, 2. That's what we were voting on today. That's why I'm here. My 3-year-old does not know how to put together a PowerPoint presentation that her teacher assigned to her. That means I, as a parent, a working parent, a business owner in Marlboro, has to hire another individual to sit with both of my kids, one who has an IEP and a 504 plan, to make sure that they get their work done effectively. That's not acceptable. A $9,000 a year tax bill, that's just mine. I can't imagine anybody else's. That's unreal. And the Chromebook that you gave her doesn't even work. We were told by the teacher that we have to find other means. So I had to go out and buy Chromebooks for both of my girls so they can go to school and be online and visual. So I have to have webcams to get attendance credit. A $175 Chromebook is how much I spent at Walmart for the same grade Chromebook that my daughter has. For $9,000, they should have MacBooks. This is ridiculous. They need to go to school 5 days a week. We can go shopping, we can go to Target, we can buy our kids whatever they want, wherever they want. We can even go on vacation. We go on vacation, quarantine for 2 weeks. But this is absurd. We have masks. I don't agree with them, but a lot of people do. And if wearing this 5 days a week gives my children the socialization that they need, bring it on. But you asking about whiteboards? Are you kidding me? People aren't working. We're sitting home with our children, crying because we do not know how to explain this stuff to them. Every day. I had an anxiety attack today, Haley. I couldn't help my child. I couldn't get online. I got an email yesterday from the gym teacher that my child wasn't online. She was. I emailed them back with everything they did. Not right.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is the story of my life. I have to always move the mic up. Hi, Mike. My name is Kate Palumbo, and I am a resident of Milton. I am a school employee in the Cornwall Central School District, and I am here to advocate for the fact that we take a chance on our kids and send them back to school. My daughter is an athlete on the varsity basketball team. She plays volleyball. She is very, very concerned with how she can participate in athletics. But as a mom, I am very concerned with her academic progress. And I will tell you that as someone who has sat in a school for the last 2 weeks where kids have attended in a hybrid model, and I understand 100% your concern, but I also need to recognize that the school district is bound by CDC and Department of Health guidelines, and so we cannot realistically anticipate or expect that our kids are going to be back in school 5 days. But we have to take a chance, and we have to send our kids back to school. Because if I could explain to you or show you pictures of the children that I've worked with over the last 2 weeks, and their smiles, and their excitement about being in a school building with their teachers and the opportunity to ask questions, that is worth more to me than any dribble of a basketball or set or a spike. It is going to be hard. There are going to be lots of questions. There are going to be lots of complaints. I have fielded them all of them, and then some. But I think it is your job as the Board of Education to understand that you will never make everyone happy, especially during a global pandemic. It will never happen. But you have to think about the fact that if you don't take a chance, and I'm not saying take a chance with people's lives or their health, but if you don't allow your teachers and staff and administrators that you have invested lots of money in to put forth their best foot and really say we are ready to go, then we are denying our children an education. I asked my daughter, you can come to school with me. I can pay tuition, and you can come with me to Cornwall. And she was so appalled that I would even ask her that question. She was appalled. We in Marlborough have set a precedent that all of the things that we offer to our children are of a high caliber and quality, and my daughter demonstrated that she would rather stay here and work virtually than come with me and go to a different school district that is in person. So I ask you to give her the opportunity, as well as all of her colleagues and friends, to come to school and work in person and have that opportunity to learn with her colleagues and her friends and her classmates and work with her teachers in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joel Piccolo. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. I want to congratulate you for the hard work that you do for our kids, for our district. I know these are very difficult times for all of us, but I think it's important that the board approves tonight, going back to school on October 6th. I know the kids looking forward to it. It's not perfect. You're not going to get everything right, but we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for a step forward. And I think the step forward is a learning, like Mr. Brooks says. You learn as you go. Today you find a problem, you fix a problem, okay? And you mandate people that wear masks, and you do the right things. And you have to follow the governors and the district and everything else like that. So I know it can be done. It has to be done. Kids cannot stay home. There's a lot of problems with it. As far as the MacBooks, when we received the call about the MacBooks, my daughter has an Apple Mac. So she doesn't need, she can return it to you, but she says, well, they told me that when she comes back to school, she has to use a MacBook, which I don't understand. I'll be happy to give it back to you if somebody else needs it, as long as she can take the MacBook that she has, her own laptop, and bring it to school. So I think that thought has to be rethought of, because if you're looking for Macs, I can give you the one that you gave us. We don't need it, as long as my daughter's not going to be penalized when she comes back to school. She can bring her own Apple products to do the work that she needs. So I think if you do that, you're probably going to get $50, $100 Macs back from other parents that really don't need it. We don't need it. So if you want it, I can bring it back tomorrow. So I encourage the board to vote yes and move forward and learn from our experience and learn from other school districts throughout the states and even other states that have opened earlier, and see what they're doing wrong or right, which you probably are doing. So congratulations on what you're doing tonight. And again, let's move on and bring the kids back to school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tim Jordan. I just wanted to say that I think it's a great idea, second the previous two people, that we have to do the return to learn. And you do have to take a chance at showing the state, the CDC, that you can succeed in a model. This hybrid is exactly what you need to prove that we can go full, because the parents that want to keep their kids at home, I respect their wishes. I mean, they may not want to take that risk. There might be whatever reason they have. The same with the parents that want to return their kids back to full school. They don't have a say right now. They have the hybrid, right? So, that being said, if we don't show that we can succeed at this and we just keep pushing off this date, I don't think if anybody really knows, there's not going to be a patient zero for quite some time. Vaccine or not, I don't see a patient zero. I don't think if anybody up here could possibly tell us when we're going to be relieved of COVID. So, I think managing and trying to do this hybrid model would be the best thing moving forward in this. With sports, I understand some of the concerns, but I think coaches are pretty smart people, not just the athletic director, but the coaches are pretty adaptable. It's what makes them athletes. So if the weight room's not available, I'm pretty sure they can figure out another way to train their kids. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there, and you put it on the You put the burden on the coaches. They'll figure it out. And I just have to say one thing with snow days. I know it's not a, it's an, I think you said a, what was it? It's
Right now, the state notified us that they may have a pilot program, but they
program.
haven't given us any detail on it.
I know that's only a pilot program, but I would like to say that we were all kids once. You all remember what it was like. I shudder to think, if you take those memories, but not even that, but asking a teacher to try and come up with a curriculum for the next day, when you don't even know if you're guaranteed a snow day or not.
Correct.
We've had the false forecast. It's just a lot. With parents, teachers that are parents, how could you possibly plan that every time? I like your hybrid schedule, Mr. Brooks. Mondays might be a good day for catching up with absences. I don't envy the IT department at all. Their job is very hard. I apologize, I'm out of breath here. But I really do like your return to learn.
Thank you. Anyone else?
On the run, as usual. Sorry. I'm just coming from Yorktown or whatever. So I spoke to you guys last week, and I'm here to Frank LaFaro, resident, longtime educator. Just here to, what I'd like to say to you tonight is, like Mr. Palumbo, I've been with the hybrid model in my school district for a little while now, and it seems to be going just fine. So if there's any reservation about it, it seems like every place around that's adopted it so far, and it does have its kinks, and you're going to have to, there's going to be some groundwork that you're going to be working through, but it's not going to be perfect. It takes a while to figure it out and figure out how it's all going to work. And we were actually, believe it or not, driving back from Yorktown, listening to the board meeting with my 17-year-old in the car, just because that's how passionate she is, and that's how much she wants to get back to school, and how much that she really has faith in you guys that you're going to make the right decisions for her and for the rest of the school district. But I want you to know it's working. I want you to know, as I told you last time, it's not perfect. You're going to go through some things, but do it, okay? You won't regret it, trust me, all right? I think the longer we wait, the more we'll regret maybe that we didn't try to get our kids back into the building as quickly as we possibly could. The social distancing, all that stuff works itself out. I know it seems ominous when you think about it, but it just kind of flows, and it just works similar to going into the grocery store and every place else that you go to out there. It just kind of, it works itself through. So I'm asking you on behalf of, again, my family and the people who are here tonight, and particularly my daughter, she needs it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question because.
It's a public comment period, Joanne.
Well,
Thank you, Frank.
Ask him a question. Out of curiosity.
Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move on to, do you want to, is there any of those couple things you may want to address, Mike? Just
Sure,
in broad
just
spectrum. This
quickly.
way everybody has an answer to some of them.
So if the board approves the recommendations I have tonight, this set of presentations every 2 weeks doesn't end. Because we start the hybrid model and bring children in, that's a step, but it's not the final step. The final step is when we have our halls filled with our children 5 days a week, all periods every day. So that is the goal. There are a lot of things that need to break the right way. And let's hope they break the right way as far as the health situation. Let's hope there isn't what professionals say is a second wave. And if there is a second wave, let's hope it's not something that knocks us down. So we will continue to work towards working out the kinks, getting this right, helping our teachers learn on best ways that they can teach the children in their room and those that are online. That in itself is monumental. The goal is every kid, every class, every day in this building as soon as we possibly can. We have to meet the guidelines. We have to adhere to what the Department of Health says. The way that's set right now, I can't put 25 kids in a classroom. I just can't. So that's why we have to split every other day. So the public understands and hopefully knows that is where we're going. When we get there, is it November? Is it December? Is it January? Is it September? I have no idea. I honestly don't have any idea. But that's the goal. first step is getting some children walking through that door after they walk off a yellow bus. And that, I hope, is going to be October 6th. The student BYOD thing, interesting. We're going to explore that tomorrow. Having our own owned Chromebooks allows a control that personal student devices does not. So safety measures for filtering for internet safety and also managing the Chromebooks and devices themselves is why we have our own Chromebooks in our own environment for students. So we'd have to look at how we can manage that with student-brought devices. But we'll look at it.
Okay, and then the other thing is this board has made a commitment since this began to continue to do these updates every 2 weeks. And I know October, we're only slated for 2 meetings, but as we progress through this, we very well may still have that 3rd meeting in October if there's progress to be made, and we'll announce that as we go forward. But the board has been committed to continue to evaluate where we are. You know, there may come a breaking point where we say, we understand why you wanted to do Mondays as a CNC, but this is working, and the board with the superintendent may look to push to get to a regular rotating every other day. We all know we would love to do what the superintendent is saying and bring everybody back. Unfortunately, the governor's regulations and everything coming out of the State Department of Health precludes us from doing it. It's just not physically allowed to do it. And unfortunately, we are not the ones that control that. Your elected officials in Albany are the ones that have given the governor this power. So, but in the meantime, we will move as quickly as possible to get students in the building as many days as possible. And we will keep evaluating it and looking at it every 2 weeks. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Recommended actions: employee contract renewal, MOA for MEAA, Board of Ed meeting minutes for 9/3, budget transfer, financial reports for July and August. Can I have a motion? Karen, a second? James? Any discussion on the consent agenda?
At this point, with everything going on, and I have to tell you, I'm having a very hard time with this, with contracts and stuff, because with people losing their jobs and getting cut at this time. So that was it. So I'm just letting you know.
Okay. Anybody else? Mike?
Does this include the personnel actions also?
Yes.
It does. On the first one with the leave of absence, with one of the teachers, I am somewhat aware of the situation, and being a how do I phrase this without saying who it is? I just want to make sure with one of the individuals there that perhaps, I don't know if a board resolution is in order or something like that, but that in reading through all our documents and our policies and procedures, I know that we cannot continue to pay this person, but I want the individual to know that the board and the district is behind this individual and their particular circumstance, and that to the extent that we're allowed to, that we would support them in whatever endeavor we can to I can't say make this event easy for them, but just to show our support for this particular individual.
Yeah, I think the best way to think about that is everybody that goes through any of these personnel actions is afforded everything within our policies and within the legal rights that we're allowed to do. You know, because you really can't, because it's a personnel matter, do anything beyond that. But, you know, we would never not approve anybody for something that we're legally within our guidelines and the direction that we've been given.
Yeah, I would just hope that this individual understands that we're behind them.
Yeah.
And we would support them to whatever extent we can in this particular trying time in their life.
I understand
I
what
have
you're
to
saying. I'll
agree
make
with
sure
that.
that message gets to the person.
I have to agree with that.
I also wanted to ask about, with respect to the financial reports, obviously the reports are what they are and they're correct, but I do have some reservations over the adjustments to the initial appropriation and the current appropriation. So while I know that these reports are correct, I do have some reservations with some of these adjustments.
Is there a specific
What do you mean, a
one that
budget transfer, or
Yeah, there's almost 20 of them.
which particular report?
which fiscal year are you talking about, though? Are they the end of the year budget adjustments for the 1920 school year?
Fiscal year 2021.
So I'm trying to see which particular, the budget transfer one, okay. So on the budget transfer document for that item?
For which, the Julys, or?
Well,
There's two of them.
as I'm reading this, it looks like we're asking for additional money to the budget.
So
No, the only place we're adding money into the budget with an actual transfer budget money change is moving money out of the reserve, the tax tertiary reserve, to pay the tax tertiary bill.
Okay, so we're not adding to the budget.
No, we can't, we're
No, I know
moving
that,
it
I know,
from
that's-
column A to column B, so it changes it changes the budget, but it doesn't change the budget in the aspect of what you're taxing.
Okay. all
It's,
right, I just wanted to
it's, money's in a reserve fund, we need to move it into
No, I
the budget
understand.
to pay the bill.
I understand. I just wanted to-
it is an accounting increase
Right.
with a corresponding revenue source.
Right.
So it's budget neutral, and it's the only way to actually pay out the certiorari. So the certiorari is in a reserve. You
Okay.
can't pay out of a reserve.
Right.
You actually have to pay it out of the budget.
No,
and
I
to fund it in
understand.
the
It's
budget.
just the way
you
I was
transfer.
reading it in.
Yep,
in the
it's an
paperwork.
accounting measure.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions on the consent agenda? Okay. James?
Yes.
Joanne?
No.
John Marrow?
Yes.
Mike Connors?
Yes.
Karen Brooks?
Yes.
John Cantone?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Consent agenda passes 7-1. We'll move on to recommended actions.
6 to 1.
6-1, excuse me. I got it here. I just got to pull your report back up. So, recommended actions, item 1, with the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to open all schools for in-person online models beginning Tuesday, October 6, 2020. Can I have a motion? Karen, second. John Cantone. Discussion. James.
I just have one question/comment. Is it possible to look at it to get the kids back in the building the 6th, and that be the focus for 2 weeks, and maybe roll in the hybrid, the virtual kids? So is it possible to look at it that we would get the kids back, the AB model, the way we had initially discussed running the AB model, where the off days they're doing at-home work, just to give the teachers a chance to meet the kids face-to-face, get the kids in the classroom, learning their protocols without the extra outside, and then once the teachers have established a rapport with the children, we, maybe a week or 2 weeks later, roll in the full new all-day or everyday live version of our hybrid model.
To answer the question, great idea. I think that we would run into a problem with FAPE because all children are entitled to their free and public education. So denying that for a period of time would probably be, it would be problematic. So,
But
I
wouldn't it
wanna
be the
fully
same? It would be, because the virtual kids get every day.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why I'm requiring that we provide tremendous flexibility to teachers and students as we enter into October 6th, the days and weeks after that, because this isn't going to be easy. And it's emotionally difficult on every side of the coin. So we have to be flexible. But if we add one of the pieces of flexibility to be that particular group won't have an experience for a week or two, we'd be putting ourselves in legal peril.
Karen?
Yes, I have 4 questions and 2 requests. I'm going to just blurt them out, and you can answer them any way you want.
Please speak into the microphone.
Yeah, I have four questions and 2 requests, and I'm going to blurt them out and let you answer them however you want. My first question is about PE and recess. Right now, for the last 2 weeks,
Karen,
physical
the microphone,
education
thank you.
has thanks. Physical education has been really online and PowerPoint presentations. Are they going to be doing any kind of interactive with the kids, and what's going to recess look like? Is it going to be inside or outside? These kids need to move. My second question is about teacher wellness. Do we have a program that we can implement? Some school districts offer programs about meditation. They'll hype up some other things that the teachers can do because they're going to be very stressed with this program, and I'm very concerned about their mental health. My third question is about the bargaining units. Have all 3, or I forget how many we have, 3 or 5 or whatever number, how many we have? We have 3, a total? We have 3 or 5. I'm not sure how many bargaining units we have, but are they all in agreement with going back on October 6th? My fourth question has to do with our policy review, or our review for an open-ended policy for technology. What would the conditions be for the law, the 2D law and the cybersecurity, if we went to that? Because I have to tell you, my own household would be the same way, giving a computer back. My daughter has a powerhouse computer that works much better than the district computer, which lags. So I would want to know about that. My 2 requests that I have, my first request would be, I'm hearing a lot from teachers in the district that the technology doesn't work, which is
Correct.
different than what I'm hearing here. So is there any way that you can provide to the board a technology audit of every classroom in the district, saying what technology is in those classrooms and if it works, and have the teachers fill out the form and then submit to us? Because then we could determine if it's a technology issue or an instructional knowledge issue of the actual devices. And my second request is, can we please keep the 2-week board meetings going? I don't mind coming to this every 2 weeks. I think it's necessary. And this way we can look at opening up the schools regular. We can look at policy as it changes, and it's changing weekly and daily up in state ed. And can we please keep on the agenda opening up the schools December, January for our sports inside? Those are my 4 big things. My
So,
4 questions and two
Mike
requests.
can talk to the ones that are specific to this agenda item, that's this
Yeah,
voting item.
I have to agree
Okay,
with
hold
Karen.
on, Joanne, can you let him address?
I'm trying to.
Yeah, no, I know, I just had to spit it out. I have them written down, but you know
No, I
how
have
I am.
them.
I'm all over.
I'm trying to figure out how to address.
It's my 3D thinking. I apologize.
It's okay. PE recess, I don't have I don't know, if, Robin, do you, I'd like to prepare for that, because I haven't prepared for that. So can I get you that information?
Sure, I just want to know that the kids are actually going to have outside, and I know we don't have to clean the playgrounds, which is crazy, under the 145-page document that came from the CDC, because that was one of my big concerns. So I'm curious, are we going to get the kids out there?
We'll get you that information.
And you know, they really need to move, these kids.
Gotcha. We'll get the
Even the
board the
sixth
info-
graders.
We'll get the board the information. Teacher wellness and meditation.
It could be anything. It's just a whole wellness program
I
if we
gotcha.
could get it in for them.
Some of these I'm not going to have an answer for tonight.
Sure,
so
sure. No, I totally understand.
We'll get to working on that. The questions about bargaining unit agreement, bargaining unit agreement, that's an executive session item, so it's not something I would address now, and we don't
Okay.
have an
I was
executive
just curious if
session
they were
tonight.
involved
We
in the
will have an
sessions.
executive session.
Well, no,
at
the second portion, were they involved in these discussions?
We have had significant number of meetings. I am sure that some would like to have more meetings and
Okay.
input. I would venture to guess that those that are in full agreement with what we're doing say plenty of meetings were good. Those that are in disagreement with what we're doing would say, we need more meetings so we can convince you to not do it.
I just want to know if
Yep.
they've been involved in
A lot.
talking and the
Yes,
decision. for
department
the 6th.
chairs, regular teachers. I held a meeting in this room with volunteers from all 3 schools. We had about 35 to 40 people in here. Free flow, exchange of ideas. Tuesday, I met with all 3 buildings chosen by the union, the teachers' union, and their representatives to ask any questions that they wanted. We had about 25 people at that meeting. Wednesday was all admin. Today I met personally with the elementary team leaders to answer any questions, ask any questions, and that's just the stuff that I've been involved with this week. Robin's constantly involved with K-12 grouping, so there's a lot of input. Is there full agreement? No. It's hard.
Oh,
This is very
I just wanted to
challenging.
make sure that they were involved.
I'm not sure if I understand the open-ended policy on 2D. Question.
It would be an open-ended device policy, which some districts have, where you can bring your own
BYOD,
device
right.
or you can use
Yeah.
the school.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
something we have to
assuming it would be
explore.
2D.
It's for the reason I had stated, the Chromebooks are purchased by the school district, managed and controlled by the school district for management purposes. So moving to a BYOD approach for children, we will need to explore pluses and minuses of that. We are moving in that direction for staff, but that's a different clientele. So, but I'll put it on our radar to have a discussion on
Well,
it.
in some districts too, staff is on even a different server.
Right.
So that's why I just was wondering what the ramifications would be for 2D and cybersecurity, because those are the 2 big new laws that would
Well,
drive
2D,
that.
I think, is a little bit of the issue, because we've got a pretty solid 2D program. It's more about being able to control that device. So if a
Right.
child's off doing something they shouldn't do, everybody has the same Chromebook in the same classroom. The teacher has a console on their device so they can see who's doing what. If everybody brings their own device, you can't do that. So
Okay.
I understand both sides of it. I think we'll need to have some kind of an internal discussion on that side of it.
And the 2 requests.
I'm getting to those now. The tech and the knowledge base, we can certainly take a walk after this after this meeting, if you want, into a classroom to see. Tech issues are multidimensional. Tech issues can be, this thing doesn't have a battery, so PowerPoint doesn't work.
Right.
All the way to Monday, Google Drive dropped out nationwide for 45 minutes.
Yes, it did. Correct.
So that continuum of tech doesn't work is tech doesn't work.
Right.
Some things we can control, some things we can't control. We're doing our best to control what we can, fix what we can as quickly as we can, and train as many people on anything they want to be trained on so that they can get better at it. Are we better today than we were on September 1st? Significantly better. Will we be better on October 6th than we are on September 17th? Absolutely. This is a constantly evolving, fix it, plug holes, train issues, all in effort. So spending the time on doing an audit, while I respect the idea and understand the data gathered, would be so time consuming that it would take the people that would be doing the audit
Okay.
away from training and plugging in cameras and angling smart boards. So
That's
I'd-
why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Because I know with the length and the depth of breath
Yeah.
that it's going to take and the manpower, but I figured I would
Um,
throw it out there as an option.
I understand. And then I'm committed to updating the board every 2 weeks. So.
Thank you.
John?
Okay, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit here because this might be a little lengthy, but I want to make it clear where I'm coming from. So first off the bat, I'm having some struggles with not that we want to do this. I'm very much excited about the fact that we're going to have potentially the online people looking at the same class environment as the people in class. That's a technological feat in and of itself to pull that off and to do it successfully, but it gives us a huge amount of flexibility that would just give us an advantage going forward and be ready for anything that might and probably will change over time. But where I'm struggling is just the pace at how we're moving and jumping into this and asking today what to make a decision when I think we have even one more meeting to go before we actually get to the 6th. But here's what I'm talking about. First of all, I know you're having some technology problems, and they're not all the districts, they're outside the district. But from the end user perspective, which is the student and the teachers, availability is a problem if it's not working. It doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter if it's the spectrum, if it doesn't matter if it's a school, it doesn't matter if it's just not working. And we're still going through the trials and tribulations, and many districts are, primarily because of this workload that is now being placed upon all the components of remote learning, right? I'm an IT professional of 30+ years. There are so many moving parts in this, something could go wrong in any place. But the fact is, there is availability problems at the moment that you guys are working through. There's also a lot of struggles that I'm hearing from the teachers in understanding how they're going to manage both the in-class and the remote at the same time.
Excuse me, it's not interactive, it's a board meeting.
I'd like you to hear me out too, please, because in a moment I'm going to tell you I am an advocate for the hybrid. That's what I want for my own children. But going back to that is they're struggling with it right now, and we're setting a date that's only 2 to 3 weeks out. And I think the issue is with setting the date now as opposed to working towards that target and doing a checkpoint in the next meeting to see how far along we are. I'm thinking, could we possibly have a pilot program of some sort where maybe some kids in some classes go and everybody else is remote, and they can start to get used to the new environment that they're going to have to be learning, and you know, how to collaborate, and then collaborating with the teachers and with Robin and everyone to get more comfortable with this and to build their skill set and build their plans and build their presentations and whatnot. Whatever it is that's making them stressed is different story than what we're hearing tonight. And I'm not saying this as that mean we should stop. I'm just saying is I do think we're moving at a pace where we were on path for doing the full online academy that was separate and the separate hybrid. We couldn't get that done in time, so we went to full remote, and within not even 2 full weeks, we're jumping to another scenario that's going to be the most complex. And I'd be more worried if we jumped into that and that had additional failures at a time when right now we're starting to build some momentum on the online, just starting to build the online. So, but just one more point before I get, I just want, for the sake of anybody out there in the audience that's listened to me, I have been an advocate of the hybrid from day one. My children have shared the same experiences that each of you are mentioning.
Yep.
As I walked out the door today, one of them said, please get us back in school. Okay? I've also had a pretty rough going the last 6 months on this COVID thing. Everything from losing my father when it first happened and I couldn't do a service. I had a family member get COVID. Not only did we quarantine outside of the community, we had to quarantine within the house. Luckily, that worked out okay. And myself and my children, and we didn't get it. We tested negative. Then I lost my job. I got a notice in May that I lost my job. So, and I know numerous people who've lost relatives, especially elderly, not only in nursing homes, but within their family. So I've seen both sides of this. I understand the fear of coming back, and I understand what this is doing to our children and the parents, and the stress of parents who can't work because they have to be home with their children, especially elementary school. I mean, it's a different story for every school, as I've been saying before. So, but amidst all of that, I am an advocate of getting us to hybrid. From day one, if you go back to the recordings, I want to get there, just like you all do. But I want to do it right. And I just feel like we should make sure, do everything we can to make sure our technology is as best as we can. It's not going to be perfect. I hear you. I'm curious of if Cornwall and Beacon and other schools that are doing hybrid, are they doing this model where they're teaching both online and in class at the same time? Yes? No, yes?
No, this isn't
I
a
just- they're not
conversation.
as good.
Sorry.
Yeah, so what are we learning from that? Like that, again, I'm not saying no necessarily, but I'm thinking we should be doing this on October 1st meeting and not today, so we get a better feeling of all these hurdles that we're going through and how much closer we are and build a confidence level, not so much at me as a board. I don't particularly need an audit of all the technology, but I feel like if there's enough teachers out there that are really not ready or feel they're not ready and need to become ready, not just training, but whatever else they need to get through their questions about how am I going to do this? How am I going to operate this? How am I going to teach and be able to flip between the screens? I think that is the most important element, as well as the technology, for us to feel comfortable to go do this. Whether it's October 6th or October 14th or October 21st, we should do this. I'm there. I'm with you. Okay? So there's no question about that.
Okay, let's let Mr. Brooks.
Okay, sorry, but I
address
just want to
that.
get that out so it didn't look like I'm saying no, and, you know.
This is all difficult. Teachers are struggling most with it.
Correct.
The only way to get experience with this is to do it. It will not be the same on Wednesday the 7th as it is on Tuesday, October 6th, because you're going to learn some things from Tuesday, and make adjustments for Wednesday. The second week of October won't be the same as the first week of October. November won't be the same as October. So I want to acknowledge, as I had said earlier in the meeting and in the middle of the meeting, my hat is off to our educators that are struggling with this, because it's hard. I live with one and watch her go through it, and all of her friends on the phone, on their own meets, almost every night. I know, I get it. The reason I'm recommending October 6th is because all of the measurement catchments have reached a critical mass that we're ready to go. And go means starting. It doesn't mean perfect.
I missed the one thing you said. What reached that point?
The color chart. So I've reached a critical mass in my recommendation set that all of the boxes are green and blue and green enough that our protocols are set. And again, my goal is to get us in the building and stay in the building. So walking through the temperature scanners is a safety measure so that we can help to create a barrier for some illness. So there's a series of things that had to fall into place so that we can, number one, deal with the health and safety issues, and then secondarily, deal with pedagogy and teaching and learning. That's a flip from what a school usually does. Teaching and learning is one in every school, everywhere, every other year but now. Right now, it's health and safety, get the stuff set so that when we do get back into learning, we can stay there. Learning is going to be completely different and extraordinarily difficult. Fortunately, we have people on staff in this building, in the middle school and in the elementary school, that expect fantastic and perfect of themselves and the people around them. That's why we're a gem in the Hudson Valley. If we're going to wait for that perfect moment, when the technology is all spanking new out of the package, and we've got production assistants helping out with we'll never get to that moment. We just won't. And I'm afraid that if we don't start now, and believe me, I've heard the pushback as much as any of you that are getting calls on it. I felt it, heard it, had direct dialogue. I'm not an office sitter. I have time with people in classrooms a lot. But if I don't, as the leader in the building, in the district, push and pull, we won't get to a point where we begin. Because if we kick the can again, we can't wait until the first to decide this. if we wait till the 1st, then the starting date is 2 weeks later. Because what's already started in motion with food service, with transportation, with scheduling, with class lists, with preparing for notices to go out to families so they know exactly when this hybrid's going to start, which day, which day, which day. These folks that are sitting in here, administrators, are literally waiting for tomorrow morning at 7:30 so they can start hitting print, create, order, buy, get going, get the buses, get this, get that. Fred's got to order food. So it takes 2 weeks to get the churn going for the whole system. Everything right now is on hold. So that's why I'm at, John, I respect you a lot because you have a lot of experience in this area and have been passionate for months, all months that we've been involved in this process on how a schedule is put together and how meets occur and how learning occurs. And I guess that's it.
So,
John.
Yeah, so just for the record, I've been against remote, 100% remote from the start, and I think everybody on this board knows that. Couple reasons why. There's nothing that replaces human interaction, in my opinion. There's nothing that replaces kids in a classroom. There's nothing that will replace that kind of learning. Even parents that are choosing to keep their kids home because of the pandemic, that's their right, and I do think that they're wrong because their kids need that social interaction and they need to be in classrooms. As public officials, as elected public officials, it's our job to listen to the public and listen to each other, and I've been doing that for the past 2 hours, and there's nothing that I have heard anybody say that would make me change my mind. I just don't. Remote doesn't work very well, and all the mistakes we're talking about, all these little minutia mistakes that we're talking about that may happen, I'd rather happen with kids in front of me in a classroom as a teacher. And I just think that we can sit here and debate this for another 2 hours. Nobody is ever going to change my mind. We should be going fully back to school, but we have to do what the state tells us at this point. And I've heard enough to feel like I have to get that off my chest. I've been quiet listening, but I just can't take it any longer. The kids need to be back in buildings, and there's nothing anyone's going to say tonight that's going to change that. And whether we make mistakes October 6th, October 15th, October 30th, if we make them in front of kids, it's going to be a better mistake. If we make them with kids in a computer and they're sitting in the living room, it's going to be worse for the kids. And that's my first thing for why I even ran for being on the board, is for the kids. And I feel like we're doing them a disservice now. I voted for the all remote in the beginning because I understood that financially we were going to have to hire a bunch of teachers to be able to do the 2 programs. And we couldn't do that, and that was our second thing, is to the taxpayers, so that's why we had to do this. But at this point, we just have to get back into the building. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, John. Joanne, you had a question
I did.
or a
Well,
comment?
Again, yeah, it's on. So again, like John, I had a family member that also passed away from COVID. And I guess my thing is always trying to keep everybody safe. And how are we going to do it? I would love for the kids to come back to school, but again, I get very nervous about how we're doing it. Are the air filters clean? Because my family member was very young that passed. So my thing is with the buses, and I'm hearing from the teachers also that the technology is not up to par, whiteboards are not working and everything else. So I am concerned to make sure if we're bringing the kids back, let's bring them back, but the online kids have to be able to learn also and making sure everything is up. So I have the same concerns that John and Karen have because I've had a number of teachers call me also. Because it is about the kids and about their learning and everything. So my one question is, with the buses, I know we said we were asking parents to bring them in. Have we talked about that to find out how many kids will be on a bus? I mean, because you said the buses are
We
up
have
and
to
ready.
provide transportation to everybody that wants transportation.
Correct.
We will encourage people to drive their children to school so we can reduce the number of children on bus, but we can't require parents to drive their own
Correct.
children.
I'm
So-
just saying, do we have an idea, or
Yes.
are we asking parents?
I
So will the
just-
buses
yes.
be not
We won't-
overpacked?
We won't know exactly how many children are getting on a bus until buses go around our routes. We will encourage We will have communication, but people, we can't tell someone you have to commit to the bus.
Well,
or
and
drive it.
let's,
So-
but we have X number of people that have opted for full online, correct? So it's roughly
35% of our children.
35% of our children aren't going to come back. So you've
Correct.
only got 65% that are actually going to come, and of those, only half of them are going to come each day. So you're at about a 30% load on a bus. Now, granted, that's not going to be everywhere because the kids all in one neighborhood may all be in the same group. But, you know, you can't
I guess it's-
micromanage and look for the minutia.
It's not that, Frank.
Yeah,
It's my thing is the safety. I'm concerned. Like John, I've had a family member that has been attacked. It was not an easy death. Okay? It was not easy at all. So when I see someone sitting there saying, let's do it, are all the safety measures in place? That's all I'm asking. Are
and
we
I
gonna
think the
have-
superintendent has
Are the classrooms going to be
addressed
cleaned?
that.
Is the technology up and running for the kids that are not coming back?
I think, well, if they're not coming back and the technology's not up, we have a problem if we don't bring them back because then nobody's getting education if they're all at home.
Right.
So,
I just want to report that, I just want to repeat it. The color charts are there for a reason because I tried to do this very empirically. I tried to do it as objectively as I could. The safety measures are in place to the best extent that we can possibly put safety measures in place. Larry's crew is top-notch.
That they are.
I see people wiping down surfaces. I smell the wonderful smell of bleach when I walk into buildings. We're not allowed to use bleach back in the spring, but it's been waived because of this pandemic. So
Right.
smelling bleach is fantastic. Prior to this, it had to be green chemicals, so you don't smell bleach, but now we do. Our cleaning crew is fantastic. We have extra flexibility for staff that are not cleaners to clean. They are doing that. One of them's here. He's fantastic.
Yep.
As far as the technology, it will always be a challenge. It will. We can't always have the brand new thing in every single space every single year. We'd be spending millions on just tech. So we will. Mike's up in the booth running tonight because the person that normally would run it has a event that they can't miss. That's the level of dedication of our people. They'll do whatever it takes to get this done. Robin was here till 8:30 last night to make sure that some scheduling elements were put together properly with our elementary principal, our elementary assistant principal, our tech specialist. They worked until 8:30 last night because they had to, because that's what it took. That's what our teachers are doing now also. They're doing what it takes to get it as best as possible. Is every single classroom perfect right now? No. Because perfect has a different measure for everybody.
Correct.
But I did watch a fantastic experience early on in the week where a classroom teacher, a teaching assistant, and a smartboard had a fantastic angle set up with an awesome lesson. I also watched a PE teacher do a full calisthenics lesson with his online group in the gymnasium in front of the computer. Fantastic. There's great stuff that can happen. We have to continue letting it continue happening. Is it perfect? It's never going to be perfect.
Okay,
I think also the contact, the kids do need to come back. They need that one-on-one. My other concern is the teachers with the tech. Will there be enough support when they're not sure? Is there that they can go to like Joel or Mike or
Just
John?
address that.
I'm just checking it again.
James?
I'm newer to the board, newer to the district. I have a kindergartner this year. I have a preschooler who goes to Cornwall, Hudson Highland Nature Museum. He's going 3 days a week, where his brother, who's in kindergarten, who went 5 days a week to the Nature Museum last year, is home on the computer. I see the toll it takes on my 5, almost 6-year-old, seeing his brother go to school 3 days a week. It's heart-wrenching. Having to tell him he was not going to the building when all this boy loves learning. It's ridiculous. All he wants to do is learn. He's teaching his brother and his sister things. From the beginning, I have not been a proponent of the full virtual model because I'm married to educators. My mom's a teacher. I'm from a family of educators, and I know the best way for a child to learn is in front of a teacher. With that being said, I would have supported if we had the safety in place for us to go hybrid right on the offset, but we didn't have the safety in place. We now have the safety protocols in place. I work at the YMCA. We ran summer camp for kids between the ages of 5 and 12 all summer. I saw how social distancing and masks work. It does work. Kids get used to it. This is the world we live in, and realistically will be the world we live in probably for the next 1.5 to 2 years. So we need to figure out a way to move forward, and that is what I believe Mr. Brooks has put forth for us, and I know in my heart I'm supporting. One concern I have just now as a kindergarten parent who's been going through some of this, and something can we look at and maybe find out when we go to the hybrid A-B model, we're still going to have the A through F days. So that means kids in person will always be in person for gym, or at least my son's, the way his schedule is set up, always in person for gym, or always in person for the other subjects. So that's just something I don't know.
There's some adjustments already made too at the middle school, also with the day AABB. So yes.
Okay,
they
so just as
recognize
long
that.
as that's something
Yes.
that is, I know there's 1,000 things the administrators are working on. Just something as a parent sitting up here and just realizing A through F is even, and if we're doing A, B, it's even. My kid's only going to be in for one or the other. Something we won't think about until it's happening. So just as long as that's something we're addressing, I'm fully supportive of getting kids back together because
Any other
they need it.
discussion? John?
So just a couple of things, Mike. First of all, I'm definitely confident you got the safety part down. That part wasn't my concern. It was about whether we're ready to do this in the new model, which is a sudden switch. At least it seems sudden for us. But I'd like to suggest a couple of things if you can consider this. And I don't want to try to tell you how to do your job, and you may already be doing some of these. But one is find a few of the teachers that are the most nervous and the ones who seem to have the most problems, sit them down and say, tell me what it would take for you to get comfortable. And a lot of that is probably more, I mean, I don't mean perfect, and I don't mean...
That's happening all the time.
Okay. But I'm saying is, some of these, I'm sure, have valid concerns who switch between boards and move around a classroom and are concerned, how am I going to manage that and somebody that's remote, right? However,
let me speak to that too, because those conversations are occurring all the time. And keep in mind too, there's a lot of different personality types in the world too.
I understand.
So some people a little more go with the flow,
Yeah,
and can adapt, and some are very concrete, sequential, and need to have things all in place before they move forward.
Right.
Guilty.
I
So
understand, but
those are valid opinions also.
Right, I understand, but if we can get a couple of those and highlight them and collaborate, send it out as, look, this is what works and this doesn't work. Again, I'm not telling you how you do your job. Secondly, is there any way we can do a little pilot program, like bring some kids in to a couple of those classes, the same ones, to say, okay, let's do it, right? They're actually going to take their classes that day, pick a couple of sections, pick a handful of volunteers, and run
Yeah,
it.
but I think what he just said before, John, is we can't do that. We anticipate fully that October 6th will be that.
Okay.
And they're
It's a
going to learn
suggestion.
as they go. I think that's
It's just
because of that, yeah.
The learning as you're going is what I know makes a lot of people nervous. And I've done it in professional life. We do it most of the time, more than we admit it, but we do it. And I get it. And this is not the way schools are run. So it's just an idea. And the third is, could we do something where you could bring in some temporary resources to supplement the technology team? Because you are definitely shorthanded.
We've done
And,
Right.
I mean, I know it could cost the district.
No, but he already said, he
We've,
just said.
we've done that. We have all hands on deck. We've repurposed different titles with the permission of UPSEU for cleaning and tech support. So we have mustered internal forces that we're already paying for to do things differently. We've got hall monitors. We've got lunch recess aides. We've got teaching assistants in any category, helping cleaning, helping with tech supports. We're all hands on deck.
Tech support, though, takes a certain level of skill. You mean help managing classrooms, or what?
No, literally helping to set up classrooms, triaging, going around with clipboards. We've got a gazillion Google Docs with list your problem, when it happened, what do you need? And people going through, if they have it at their level, can fix it, great. If not, it's got to get kicked up to another level. So there are a lot of moving parts. So please, while I don't want to ever portray, and please, everybody that's watching, every teacher that's listening, everybody that's going to watch it afterwards, I'm not going to portray, and I've said it 1,000 times tonight if I've said it 5 times, we will not be perfect. Our technology has struggles. Some things we are in control of, some things we are not. Our wiring is strong. Our backbone is strong. Our switches are all brand new. Our servers are all brand new. We have purchased a significant amount of bandwidth. So the structure is very strong. We have been buying the peripherals needed so that the computers in classrooms can broadcast out in droves, so that we have 150 classrooms, give or take. We have 150 broadcast studios. Are they all perfect yet? No. We're working towards that. That doesn't mean that we've got stuff hanging off of walls. It's just, it could be as simple as, I spent time in a classroom with a teacher that was struggling, saying, look, I've got my camera set up, and I have it aimed at my board. And when you write on the board, you can't see the writing. They said, no, you can't. I'm going to have John Morallo come down and show you how to do this, but you shouldn't be having your camera focused on the board so that kids can see the board. The camera is there so there's a human dynamic. You should be casting your smartboard to the Google Meet, join the Google Meet twice, once with the content and once with the Brady Bunch view, so you can see everybody.
Now you can do
Oh, okay. So that's a learning curve piece too. That person guaranteed, because that's why I was there, the tech doesn't work. No, the tech works. It's a training piece that we need to spend more and more time on. And that's one person at a time. We have 166 teachers. I don't know what percentage of the 166 would consider themselves proficient, but none of them have ever experienced hybrid, remote, pancake learning. I want every one of them to experience it on October 6th so that every one of them can begin to build a proficiency. I get the pilot. That's a very good way that education uses all the time to work towards new initiatives. In this particular case, it just kicks the can down a little too far that I'm concerned about not getting kids back in sooner.
I was thinking you could do it within the 2 weeks, not
There's no way.
Even with
We're doing every
even with
effort
the
to just
dates.
keep floating on what we're doing right
That's why I
now.
call them suggestions.
So, right. No, it's
But
a valid
just the
idea.
last thing I just want to make clear, I was suggesting the pure tech guys, the IT guys,
Mhm.
if we wind up, working them to death, I think it's worth some investment whether you take a BOCE service or you bring on some temporaries.
They don't have them.
If you need it.
They don't have them.
Okay, but
We would buy it temporarily like that.
can you hire people temporarily, like contracting services?
We're
like
in process.
companies do?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just saying, if
Yep.
you did, I would support it from a board perspective in terms of if we had to,
It's not that level of need. The need is really, the need is, we have, the high-tech level need, we don't have a need there. It's more of the volume of people that we have. Mike, you want to speak to it?
I do.
I was just going to say.
Sorry, we do have to monitor the stream, but technology support as far as the break and fix in classrooms has come up so much that I really did need to come down and explain that some of the items is not an unusual thing. Whenever we start up and get all the furniture back in classrooms, everything was unplugged, it's not a normal year because we didn't have some of the things in place over the summer because of construction. And that is some of our summer youth program, for example. So we are still going through and plugging in some systems and rewiring. That's one piece. The other piece is that we are also in the process of assuring these safety mechanisms. Both the temperature scanners, the COVID app requires desk time. So Joel and I and other technical staff can't be both places at once. It's a give or take. Right now, we're committed to getting these COVID temperature systems, the app, up and running. That means we're doing some desk time, we're testing. We'll get out to those classrooms and we'll knock out most of the issues you're talking about. Projectors and smart boards, parts have to be replaced, some parts have to be ordered. All of that really is routine maintenance of a system this big. So I understand teachers are under pressure. We want it all working at 100%. And we will get there over time.
Well, that was to my point. If you need help,
Thanks,
and we
Mike.
could hire them. If we could hire them, let's hire them. That's what I was saying.
We have interviewed some temporary techs. These are some college students that are home, that are studying in the field. We're looking to bring them on very soon to help with some of those other routine classroom issues while we tend to some deeper matters.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. That
Okay,
helped.
Mike.
Thank you.
No, not you, Mike. Sorry. Mike Connors had a quiet. He had his
Just
hand up.
briefly
Sorry.
to build on what Mike had said, you know, we're talking about technology like there's a preponderance of issues in technology, and that's just simply not the case. The preponderance of technology works, you know, and give some credit to our teachers and administrators. When things aren't working or aren't working perfectly, they're going the extra mile to make it happen. Okay, so we're actually in a pretty good position. And when we talk about a trial period, we're in it. This is the trial period now. And we feel it's, well, the vote will tell us.
There is also a movement up a continuum. We talk about knowledge base. In some of the cases, teachers are still trying to take traditional learning that they would do with the students in front of them and try to do it in a virtual environment. Virtual learning and teaching requires virtual tools. We have that training. It does take a while and trial and error to capitalize on all those virtual tools. It might take 2 trainings. It might take 3 trainings and sitting with John Morallo for 20 minutes. But we are moving up that continuum. I hear a lot of things and they're trying to physically move things around. What I know, and what I know that they're going to learn over time, is there's virtual tools that do those same things. There's buttons there. I'm trying to, in my communication with teachers, keep it simple. If you surround yourself with all these technologies and things, that's a lot you have to manage also in an online environment. So these conversations are happening. We are evolving. We're evolving very quickly. I'm sure some of these other educators in other schools that are in hybrid models have seen such growth in their staff as well. So it takes patience, but it certainly takes some trust. Trust we're working hard. Trust we will get those issues addressed.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap up before we do the vote. The district has spent an enormous amount of time getting to this point. The administrators, the staff, everybody. We're in a different time. This is something none of us, if somebody had said a year ago we'd be sitting here having these conversations, I would have said they need to go for drug testing. I mean, it's just not, nobody ever would have imagined we'd be here. But the administrators, the staff, the community has been very patient. Everybody's doing an amazing job to get to this point. And I know, having lived in this district a very long time, that the people that work here, are going to do everything that needs to happen to educate our children. We just need to give them that ability to get them back in the classroom. And as soon as they'll let us bring them all back, we bring them all back. But for right now, at least we can bring half of the ones that want to come back every day. So with that, we'll call the roll. James? Yes. Turn your microphone on.
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes, I think we should bring the kids back.
John Marrow?
Can I vote absolutely instead of just yes?
Mike?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
John Cantone?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, also under the recommendation of the superintendent, a motion to allow for modified JV and varsity sports to begin off-season conditioning on October the 6th. Can I have a motion? John Marrow, second James. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. James?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
John Marrow?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
John Cantone?
Yes.
And myself, yes. A motion to allow for modified JV and varsity sports to return to competition as per New York State Department of Health, New York State Public High School Association, and Section 9 rules after October 5th, it would be, 2020.
Well,
right?
I put the 6th because that's the first day of kids.
Okay, you don't want them to start that day?
Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
October 6th.
Let's get it going, and
Okay.
then...
After October 6th.
I mean, you
Have
want
a
to change to
motion?
the 5th?
No, that's
doesn't
fine.
matter.
Yeah, it's,
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought, James, second. Karen, any discussion? Roll. James?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
John Marrow?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
John Cantone?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And the final one, a motion to allow for exterior facility use as per Board of Education Policy 3280 for groups 1 through 4 beginning Monday, September 21st. Can I have a motion? James, second. Karen, any discussion?
Yes.
Mike?
I would like to amend the motion to exclude new applicants. For example, I know Larry maintains a website because we used to use it for a baseball team that I sponsored, but I'm leery of new organizations applying to come in. I don't know that we have the time to thoroughly vet them.
Well, there's groups 1 through 4 is nothing
No, no.
outside the community.
Group 4 could be a non-for-profit group within the community.
Right. We can't, by law, if I remember correctly, we can't limit. If we're not going to allow, we can't pick and choose which groups.
So you're telling me that we can't exclude someone that makes an application, they automatically
If
have
they
to have
fall in that
permission?
policy guideline, we would have to allow that policy guideline.
You'd
The-
have
the
to
reality is,
exclude the whole group.
you have to exclude the whole group. And if they're in the community already, if it's a community-based group, it's an outdoor.
Well, what constitutes in the community?
They have to physically have their
If there's
organization within the
if
school
there's
district.
a 501c3 registered somewhere within the district,
Correct.
Yes.
whether or not we've had any contact with them in the past.
Yes. Yeah, otherwise you're picking and choosing, and then we run into a whole issue.
My
That's
The
why we
idea about a
limited, that's why we
moratorium.
didn't go into 5 and 6, I think it's 2 more levels, right?
I think there might be a 7th.
Yeah, 5, 6, and 7, they specifically left off, because that really would have opened us up to everybody and their brother that doesn't have a place to go, could have come.
Honestly, I don't know the answer, Mike, about whether you could have a moratorium for new applicants. I don't know the answer to that. So if that's the pleasure of the board, I can find that information out for the next meeting, but I wouldn't be able to get it tonight.
I'd be concerned that anybody in the community that meets the guidelines at this time, if we can give them something, I mean, we're not precluding, I mean, to preclude somebody that's in the community just doesn't.
These are crazy times, okay? 1, 2, and 3, I've got no problem with. 4, could potentially, I mean, I don't know all the groups within our district. I don't know who's registered, who's not. I don't know that you could know who's.
Mike, are you concerned like there can be a group from another town, have one person live in this town and file for the 501c and be a community member
already
and
be
bring in a
registered
whole,
here.
bring in a
Already be
whole team from another town? Is that what your concern is? Because I can understand that.
Yes, that's exactly my concern, because there are dormant registrations all over the place, okay? And then if we can't restrict them from coming in, then I would say I would amend the motion to read groups 1, 2, and 3.
I understand.
Just point of clarification, and I don't know if anyone knows off the top of their head. I worked in nonprofit swimming for a very long time in the Pine Bush School District. The Pine Bush rules are 80% of participants have to be district residents. So for the swim club, 80% at any time the school district was able to come and say, we need a roster of your participants. You need to prove that 80% are district residents. And does our rule, I didn't read it that thoroughly, but.
Right, it does not have that as a measure in there, but that would be something that would need to go through a policy change. Larry, I don't know if you want to come up and address some of the questions, because this is the gentleman that manages it all, so.
No, I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I also know we do have, like, there are some baseball teams that use our facility here where some of the key people are here and the organization is based here, but a large number of the players on that team are not from here.
Right, but that's why
And it
you
hasn't been a
have to.
problem in the past, but
Right.
my fear is if somebody comes in and says, hey, you do it with these people, you
Right.
know, why can't we come in?
That's the board's pleasure. That's why it has to be by group. It can't be by individual organization.
We do currently have 80%, but what we don't do is we don't check the rosters. We don't physically check the rosters. I'm not gonna tell you that we're checking the rosters, but we do have a rule for 80%.
Okay.
They are supposed to comply with an 80% rule of our kids.
Is that in the regulation or in the
Yes,
policy?
it is.
So
Or
then
the
we're
policy.
covered, Mike. We could just.
Maybe, even though it's in the regulations, if we have a history of not enforcing that, okay, then you have a legal issue.
Not this year.
Well, if we haven't enforced it, he's right, we would have a problem. Well, I guess we have a motion to amend it to just do 1 through 3 at this time. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Joanne, any discussion?
If we went that way, what would it entail? I mean, is it going to be a big lift to add number 4 to it? Because I feel like we'd be excluding a lot of local, teams just for maybe 1 or 2.
Larry, do you know offhand, Larry, do you know offhand, I mean, this might be tough, but who's in group 4? So this is not-for-profit groups that are based within the Marlborough Central School District, youth organizations not officially sanctioned by the town of Marlborough.
There would be quite a number of them, actually.
Well, and we're only talking about outdoor facilities.
Yeah,
Outdoor users?
Yeah.
One example is
There's a
Marlboro
number-
travel teams.
Outdoor users, there's a number of softball clubs under the Duchess Debs organization. There's a number of groups under Duchess Debs. There's a couple of baseball groups, and there's a couple of soccer groups that are local, but not town sanctioned.
Right.
My comment, I can understand what Mike's saying, and I respect it, but to me, I would, to me, it's more of an enforcement issue than it's a policy issue. I'd say we go with the 4, and then we can talk separately about maybe doing a better job at checking the 80%, because you're going to exclude more than you're worried. Your concern of what you're going to include, I think, is going to be much less than how many we're going to exclude. And there's so many folks that really need the outside activity, because the schools, as much as we just approved tonight, is not going to get into full swing for quite a while, right?
Yeah,
In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I agree with John, and I also think Mike Connors does bring up a valid point that we do need to look into it, but I do agree that we're going to exclude more than we're going to include.
agree.
It's a tough one.
James?
Can we amend it to enforce the regulations as written, that rosters need to be submitted, provided with 80%? It's in the regulations, and that way we're not precluding, we're not opening ourselves up to a lawsuit. We, as the Board of Education, would amend this to have the outside groups have to supply their roster, providing 80% Marlboro residents as per the regulations. We're not changing any of the regulations.
I don't even think we'd have to amend it. We just got to direct them to make sure they're enforcing the policy.
So
Yeah.
I think if that's the regulation, I don't see why we can't make it enforced.
Well, it wouldn't just be Marlboro residents. It would have to be Marlboro Central School District residents.
Right, yeah, no,
Right.
because I'm a town of Newburgh.
So,
but
Yeah, me too.
Let's just play this forward for a second. So,
So can I
I-
ask a question, Mike?
can I answer first, though?
Sure.
I want to make sure we understand what we're operationally going to be asking Larry to do. So while we're opening, we're also going to be asking Larry to, yes, a piece of existing regulation, get into an enforcement mode, and it's Larry and his secretary that do that. So what does that entail? So we understand, Larry, what does it entail to enforce the 80% rule?
Get the rosters.
But then how do you ensure that that roster's accurate?
Accuracy, I don't know that I would be able to
Right.
ensure
I'm
without
just trying to figure out how that...
without
I-
physically checking. But if you ask them for a roster, you ask them for a list of names and addresses so that they
Correct.
fall within the district.
So then the assumption would have to be that people on that roster and the person that submitted it, they're not lying to you. The only other next level would be Larry literally having to check names and addresses. Go ahead.
If I may, for the most part, I mean, and I don't check rosters, Bobby doesn't check rosters, but for the most part, what we see when we're going around are mostly our children by these groups. I think there are some, one or two kids from outside the area, on a team, but we're not seeing 75% New Paltz kids or Walk Hill kids and one or two of our kids. We're not seeing that on a regular basis.
Okay.
Do you, Larry, could you manage this? Do you think, based on, and I know these are unprecedented times, so we don't know, do you think there would be a concern with opening to the group force?
Outside?
No, doing all
outside
four,
only.
the exterior, just the outside stuff.
Do I feel there's a concern?
Yeah.
I think if done properly, with the right regulations, we'd actually have a little bit more control than what's actually going on right now, to be honest with you, because right now we're not really monitoring much of anything. And the
Larry?
facilities are being used every day. Everybody sees that.
Larry, could you explain what the application process is? I know because I went through it, but could you just let them know what it takes for them to get use of the fields or the
It's an
facilities?
online process, and that application, basically, they're submitting their name, the name of the organization, and a proof of insurance. Once they meet the proof of insurance requirements, have all the information, basically name, address, contact information, they get approved, and then we try to fit them in the schedule.
Could we possibly add to that if they're adult groups that maybe they produce driver's licenses or something like that?
Michael, I apologize. Please just repeat that a little bit louder for me.
Is this on? If they're adult groups, for example, could we amend the application process to include presenting driver's license?
For adult groups, sure. I don't see why not. You
Why
could.
can't
I
we
mean,
just ask them for their addresses?
So, can we spend some time doing some research? Because there's a lot of detailed change here.
Right.
And the situation that we're in right now is our fields are being used quite a bit.
Yep.
And we're not regulating it all.
Correct.
So the attempt here is to move into a regulatory mode. Changing it's no problem. We can adjust the regulations, we can change the policy, but we didn't prepare for any answers. So maybe we could get some questions so that next board meeting, we can give you a full report in time to get really into some depth of detail, because I have a feeling there's more to this.
One thing I can say by doing this, by approving this tonight, we now open up the ability for these teams to schedule, right, online, because up until now, that was basically shut down.
Right.
And people were using the fields, and if you
Regardless,
catch them,
right.
you catch them. If you didn't, you didn't. Now that'll be more level of control that we will have, right, and be able to monitor it just through the normal process without any change. So I still recommend we vote yes. Let the teams get back to normal. Let the scheduling tool open up, and then pursue the issues which are valid concerns, as
So
a separate thing. That's my opinion.
I do get that, John, but Mike did bring up a good point, and Larry, I think, brought up also a good point. I think when you apply that, you also have to hand in the roster of who's playing and where they're playing at that point. Where they live. Because at that point, you're going to be
That's in
able
the
to see.
regulation.
That's in the regs, we just have to enforce it.
Well, we have, that's why this is the discussion about it to get to that point.
And that was my concern with the whole thing, because with the lack of fields this year, I've seen it, when I'm out there umpiring, people are, wherever there's a field, they're trying to play. So if we have the regulation in place and the 80% rule, I'm fine with that. That's what I was concerned about. Everyone from all over the place saying, hey, Marlboro's got fields now, let's go.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to not allow Group 4 to move forward. When we have a second. So I'll call the roll on approving not allowing the Group 4, and if that fails, then we'll go back and do the whole thing. Okay? James?
No.
Joanne?
I don't know. I'm just kind of torn right now. Go ahead, go the other way.
No, Joanne, it's your... Joanne, you have to vote.
Can't you just come back?
No, Joanne, you have to vote.
All right. No, I guess.
John Marrow?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
John Cantone?
No.
And myself, no. So we'll move back to the policy. So that was to amend the motion. So the motion stands as we're going to allow groups 1 through 4 beginning Monday, September 21st to do that. In addition, we're asking the district to enforce our regulations, which
that.
we've discussed. James?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
John Marrow?
Yes.
Mike Connors?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
John Cantone?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries 6-1.
We go home.
Almost.
Okay, so that's those. We get back to the actual meeting.
What you talking about?
Any new business? Any old business? Just onto other items, Larry Berger, who is our representative from Orange Ulster BOCES, has not been attending the meetings even now that we've gone live, but he did want to send his appreciation that we've gotten back to real meetings, and he is following them online, but he didn't want to be taking up a seat just in case we wound up with district residents the way here. So we appreciate all the support, Larry, that you give us.
Thank you, Larry.
Recognition of district residents on any topics.
I just want to say thank you, Kate Palumbo, Milton. I just want to say thank you for allowing our children to come back to school. I think it's really important. And as the Board of Education, it is your responsibility to support our teachers and to make sure that you have grace and our administrators when things come down the pike to you over the next couple weeks, because it's going to be uncomfortable for people. And no matter what is said or done, there are going to be people who are so happy and there are going to be people who are upset. And I think it's your job to remember to have grace in those situations, and remember that no one is making decisions in the worst interest of kids, that everyone makes decisions in the best interest of kids. And I also just want to say that there's a lot of concerns about health and safety. And I just want to share that I am a middle school principal, and from March until September 7th or 8th, I did not receive one CPS call from any family, from any teacher, from a social worker. But on September 11th, I had to make my first one. So we're concerned about the health and safety of families and kids because of COVID, but we also have to be concerned about children who are home and don't have an outlet. So we have to kind of measure that and weigh that on our shoulders because we all have those experiences, and we need to make sure that we keep the whole child in mind. So I really appreciate your support, and I hope that you hold the course because it's not going to be easy, and we all recognize that, but we support you as a community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have no executive session tonight. We have a motion to adjourn. Karen, second. John Cantone. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks right back here.
Seriously? Kindergarten, here we come.